Fantastic. Okay, I sent the slides to the chat. So just open those up. Do the classic remote ECF. I can send that link as well again.
Yes, please.
Yes, please.
It's always chaotic. Okay, here it is. And if you want the bigger screen this time, just pick a different option. I don't know if you're gonna want it full screen because that could be hectic. So it's like totally up to you. If you really like the small screen, you could just go with the default. Otherwise, just click full screen under resolution.
I think I'm gonna go with the regular right now because
It's not a bad idea because you can kind of window it up a little better. Okay. Okay, and we're going to be starting at slide 37 today. So we made some pretty good progress last week. That's a lot of slides to get through.
yes, sir.
Okay, let me just see if I can. Okay, open up SolidWorks.
Last week I'd forgotten what my ECF password was because I hadn't keyed it in for so long.
Yeah,
it
I don't blame you.
was an interesting experience. I was like, oh my god, panic for like the first 5 seconds. I was like, I remember it now.
Yeah, I feel like that's always the thing though. Whenever we use something that you know, you don't use like every single day, but you know, you just use it like a couple times here, made an account, and then come back like a week later or something like that, and then always forget password.
It's so chaotic. Okay, fantastic. I've got my SolidWorks open. Take your time. Just I'll give you like 5 minutes to get it open. I know stuff is a little slow, and then I'll ask you in 5 minutes if it's still loading. You could just let me know, because we're gonna start with some hands-on stuff. So it'll definitely help to have SolidWorks open.
I open MATLAB instead of SolidWorks.
MATLAB will open a lot faster. Unfortunately, it won't do what we're trying to do. You could graph your design project in 3D. Be a nightmare, but I assume it's possible.
It would probably really be a nightmare. Although you can get some really pretty pictures with MATLAB.
This is true.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, SolidWorks is all built on the same fundamentals, except for somebody else has figured this stuff out for you, right? Like it's all linear algebra and I guess like 3D graphing in many respects, like when you do stuff. Except for it's much better when somebody else, like a big team of somebody else's who really know what they're doing, do that for you.
Yeah, all you got to do is just tell them.
Yeah, and all you got to do is like press the really nice word which says what you want to do. I'll share my screen. Oh, can you make me a co-host or change it so everybody can share screens? It doesn't matter to me. Actually, change it to everybody just so other people can share.
Yeah. Yes, give me a second.
No worries.
One participant can share the time. Is it working now, Aidan? Try it.
Let's see. Nope, not yet.
I might have to just make all of you co-hosts, okay?
That's totally fine.
It's a very like.
That's not a problem. I've got one other thing I want to open up anyway, so I'll just do that in the meantime.
When I try to open it, it asks for a password, but I don't know what password it is, and it's like asking for this, like the username is like win, and then like slash. Does anyone else get that?
So that's still just your user ID.
Oh, okay. I was so confused. Thank you.
Yeah,
I'd
no
be
worries.
confused too. That's kind of concerning.
No, I had that last time. It's totally fine. Don't worry. Okay, so I opened SolidWorks and the interface looks very different from what I did last time.
Okay, how about this? Share your screen and I'll tell you what's going on because maybe other people are gonna experience that too.
Okay, give me a second. Hold on.
Because I'm kind of curious.
I just closed the entire thing.
Okay, well maybe it'll be like that when you open it back up.
All right.
It's all right. You got a few minutes to do that. So just boot it back up and let me know when it's loaded. I'll just keep doing what I'm doing on my end.
Sounds good.
Oh, cool.
I feel it must be so interesting for people who are not in this call to watch this call.
Oh, I'm sure it would be very interesting. I agree.
Hello, stranger, whoever is watching this. Hello.
I hope you're enjoying.
We're thinking about you.
Okay, so I just did a bad. My slides is not working properly now. I can't get like okay, I fixed it. Okay, so like what I did is just to simplify things, I copy and pasted my slides from like the second day to the first day's presentation. But when I copy and pasted them, they switched from having an orange background to a black background with black text. So the text is completely hidden and it's for you to find. It's like a mystery hint surprise. It's like if you feel there's something missing, highlight the screen and see what you can find. Okay, now I'm changing all the important stuff to white that I like realize needs to be there.
Or you can just change the background on all the sides to white.
This is true, but the black actually looks really cool, and it wasn't originally black. And like I'm liking it.
Sounds good.
And I know where the text is. Like it's.
Do you see all of this?
Okay, let's see.
I got rid of one of them by just clicking anywhere. And
Rid of one of them. Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay, don't worry about that. It's just like some additional like side menus that you can access. And I guess sometimes they'll open on launch. I don't. Okay, no, it is open for me, but it's like very small and like off to the side.
It's probably because I'm on that like small screen resolution thing. So
that is probably a good point. That is definitely exactly it. So that is like the size you can read. Okay, that's totally fine. So that'll sometimes pop up. I'll show you my interface, so like I can just show you how to like close it regularly, or like what is even there. I haven't really explored that before, so we'll kind of explore it together. I just kind of do my thing and ignore it. Don't tell SolidWorks that. Okay, I will share my screen now. Share screen. Okay, I guess just my screen. Fantastic. Okay, here are the cool black slides. They should be under all the slides that I sent in the link there, just like towards the end. And where we are today is we're making a chain without the key. So it's no longer a key chain, it's just a chain. So I don't know if there's like a formal name for like a chain, but I just really wanted to teach you some things that a chain shows how to make really well. And we're also gonna like experiment with like something I kind of brought up last week, but I didn't show you how to do, which will be really interesting for us and a good experience to learn. Okay, fantastic. And as always, like it's been a week, so I expect you to forget things. It's just natural. So if you are struggling or like falling behind or like can't remember something, just ask, because like whoever's watching the videos, the 4 hours long, they probably forgot something for the last 4 hours anyway, or like since they watched it last time. So it'll be helpful for everybody involved, and like, I don't know, maybe you'll like come across something that, you know, we all need to learn from. Okay, can everybody see my SolidWorks? Okay, fantastic. So yeah, on the right side of the screen, for some reason it's not like really loading in, but that is exactly what you were seeing, this like 3D experience marketplace. I think this literally is just a marketplace. Like, okay, here it is. Yeah, so it's like just trying to encourage you to like expand into like their new software that they released this year, which is like the 3D experience platform, which is pretty cool. I mean, you could click don't show this page again, but like the concept of it, like in case you're ever interested in the future, because this is like what SolidWorks is really like pushing towards in their company, is it's like a cloud-based software. So kind of like Google Docs, except for with 3D models. And so like you can collaborate better, and there's like an overall interface for like managing software. Because the parent company of SolidWorks owns like a bunch of different softwares, not just SolidWorks. Like, so a lot of them are like organization and like structure based, like just like to be more efficient. So it's kind of like a culmination of all of them in like this online platform. So it is pretty cool, and I've used it a bunch. And it comes with like some other tools that aren't SolidWorks, but SolidWorks is still at the core. So like if you're at a future job and like for some reason that would be like really impressive to bring up because they don't know about it, now you know. It's just called the 3D experience platform. So I'm just going to click don't show this page again because I already have it. So here's some like SolidWorks resources. Let's see what they've got here, if there's anything super, super interesting. I mean, you can explore it here. Like, I think this is just like general, probably like link to a website kind of thing. Like compare my score. I don't know what that means, but I'd be interested in what my score is. So this is actually kind of useful here, and we can go back and revisit this later. So this icon is normally on the side of SolidWorks, like when we're using it, just like the appearance library is. So some of this stuff you can't like really do anything on a screen that is just empty, but I think it's just here because so you can like explore and see what you have before you're in your model. That is my assumption. So like the design library is really cool because there are things that like when you download SolidWorks, SolidWorks gives you like a bunch of things that come pre-built, and you can like add more things. So like the main thing that comes to mind is this thing here, which is the Toolbox. I guess I haven't downloaded it, but the concept of the Toolbox is it comes with like a bunch of like nuts and bolts of like standard sizes and like just like standard all this stuff, but very standard. It's like if you were like, I don't want to design a washer, I just want to see like what some standard washers are. And this can like help a lot because some of these things are very difficult geometry to make. It's like, for example, a screw. We would not want to make a screw if we didn't have to. So like ideally we could just go in here and be like, yeah, this thing is awesome. And then we could just drag it into our model and use it. And so ideally you'd probably use this at the assembly level. And like when you're putting all your stuff together, just kind of like stick this in there. So like say we needed a screw, for example, on like something we made and we were like assembling it all there. This is kind of the place that you'd take it and put it in. Just so that like you can have a very like full and complete model with all the exact parts that you need. And you can make sure that like these standardized pieces, you know, would work for what you were intending them to do. So super useful. And that's just called the Toolbox. And like you saw, I didn't even have it downloaded. I just like clicked add in and it was almost instantaneous. So like it's worth exploring, especially like if you're doing a project and you need a screw, you need a nut, like something you would go to the hardware store and you would just buy in bulk. That is where you'll find it. And I believe you can add more things to the Toolbox that aren't already there. But like I haven't really done that in the past. I'm just pretty sure you can. Okay. Okay, we can get started then. There's nothing else really on this side menu here that's all that important. I just did want to touch upon this at some point, so it worked out well that we were discussing it. So I'm just going to close this. So if you want to close this side menu, you have the option to like keep it there by clicking this. And it's like no matter what, it'll stay. If I unclick it, it like unpins. So like when I tap this again, okay, now I need it the opposite way. Let's see. Okay, so like the whole concept is like if I click this and it's like at this angle, that means the pin is in. It's like if I click anywhere else on my screen, it won't go away. So this is worth knowing because this menu actually stays. So like for some reason, maybe you're like going to the toolbox to the appearance library a lot and you want it to stay open. You're gonna want the pin to look like it's like sticking in there, the thumbtack or whatever you call this thing. So I'm gonna click it again. So it's like off to the side, it's not pressing into anything. And now if I just click on my screen normally, it goes back to where it was before. So like that can be really confusing to people who just start because it's not like there's like an X button or something and you're gonna realize you can't get rid of it. So it's really helpful to at least know that in case you come across that in the future and things get really chaotic. I'm gonna show you one more thing, just kind of like along those lines. So I'm just gonna create a new part. You can do this too, but like it's the same process as before. Like just go wherever you can find new, click that. So we're gonna go new part. But I just want to show you super quick, like something that I've had go wrong in the past, and it took me a very long time to figure out what I did wrong, and I was like very concerned. I assume you can still do it. Okay, so like, let me see if I can. If I can't get it, they might have made it harder to do. Okay, here. So like, I mean, that's kind of confusing. But the whole concept of what I was trying to say is like, it is possible within SolidWorks to rearrange your screen. So it is possible to like take this top bar and like move it to the right side. I don't see where to do it in SolidWorks 20, but like in the past, I've accidentally like completely dislodged it and things were just a mess. And that's just for like people who have preferences, who are trying to do stuff much faster, who are like just like trying to go in between things. But there's also a lot of like other techniques to do stuff really quick. We're not going to really go over them, but like one of the best techniques that like if you are trying to get better at SolidWorks, that's worth looking into, is there's like a hot menu that you can create for like very popular features. So like without leaving your model to go up to like the top side of your screen, it'll have all your tools in like a circular menu and you just quickly hover over it and use it. So like, I don't personally do that because I guess I teach more than I model. So like, that's not useful. I don't really want to build that habit because you're just not gonna be able to follow it. But also I'm not at the level in which I'm just like trying to speed run SolidWorks. But there are some people who are very impressive like that. Okay, I'm gonna go back to this last and we're gonna see what we're creating first. So as I mentioned before, we've got the chain without the key. So from all the tools that we've learned so far, you have absolutely no way of creating this unless I show you how to create this. And so that's why I wanted to cover it, because you will come across stuff that has like a geometry like this or has to use this specific process for making stuff, right? So like in the past, we learned how to extrude stuff. So like if I wanted to create this using the tools that we know, I'm just gonna show you super quick. We would go to the sketch, right? We start a sketch on the top face. And so we're gonna try to do like the top down view. And so I'm not gonna like have perfect geometry. We're gonna pretend that that was like an ellipse. Ellipses are really odd. But like, say we're like, okay, yeah, it follows this kind of path, my chain. It doesn't, but like theoretically. So then we'd go into features and like, we wouldn't really know what to do next. So like we could think, we learned last week how to use, okay, sorry, Zoom is interrupting my screen. Okay, here, offset entities. And remember, like we could create like an offset, like give it some sort of thickness. So I'm just gonna reverse that. We've got some sort of thickness here. So like then I could go and extrude it and like give it some sort of height. But like that's not a chain, right? We don't have like this circular profile going throughout. Instead, we just have like this flat thing. And it's like we get super creative and like try to round the edges of both sides and like try to turn it into a chain, but it's just not going to happen. So I'm just going to delete what I just did. I just wanted to like show you that we don't have the tools to do this. And like I could like give you an hour and you still wouldn't figure it out because like I can't think of a way to do it. I'm going to delete that too. Okay, fantastic. So we're going to go to the top plane.
Okay, I have an idea.
Okay, I want to hear your idea.
Okay, could you not make the cross section circle and then arc extrude it, and then double thing that and make another cylinder to join the two ends?
See, you're definitely onto something. And so in some ways, yes, you could do that. And that's kind of what we're going to do, but you wouldn't be able to do that with the normal extrude boss feature. So what you could do is you could make this straight part here, but you would not be able to make this curved part here because the extrude feature is purely straight or backwards or straight and backwards. But you're right, that is what we want to do, right? That is like you're thinking in the way that you need to think for SolidWorks. So I'm going to show you how you could do the arc extrude, right? That is kind of what we're going to get at. So you're spot on with that. And so there's a few things that we need in order to do that. So the concept of what we're going to be doing is we're going to be creating the circle to start, which is going to be our profile. And then we're going to create a path for that profile to follow. And so we're going to create the circle, create the path, and then we're going to say, SolidWorks, I want this circle to go along this path. So it's going to extrude the circle along that whole arc, whatever we draw, and all the way back to where it started, creating this all in one instant. So we won't have to like break it down into these pieces, and then do this. It'll do it all at once as long as we do this the right way. That's kind of the goal. So we're not going to hit that right away. I wanted to show you something else first, but that is how we're going to be creating this. So what I wanted to show you is global variables. So no, I won't window my screen. I'll just go back and forth. Okay. So this is something we haven't touched on before. Like I briefly brought it up last week when I was showing you the examination model and like how there are like certain variables that it requests you use to like dimension things. Like that'll make a lot more sense in a second. So I'm just gonna type in. So like once again, at the very top here, we have like the super handy tool. As long as you have this black icon at the top instead of this icon here, which used to be the default, but as we learned last week, now commands is the default. You can type in anything that I say. So like, I don't want to go through the hassle of like figuring exactly where to add variables. So like variables is the word, so I just type it in. So like the actual feature isn't even called variables that we're going to be using. It's called equations. And so SolidWorks knows that like variables is like very closely linked in words. So the word doesn't even have to be exact and it'll give you something close. So we're going to click on equations. So like if you want to type in equations instead, type in equations and you're going to get this screen. So I want you to follow along on this screen with me. So you might as well go and open this up real quick. So just go to the top, type in equations, and then click that sigma. Okay. So we're actually going to have to close this super quick. And so the reason is we're going to be in millimeter gram seconds again at the bottom right, which is the default. We can change that. I don't think I'm going to show you how to change that because then you're going to be wanting to switch back to millimeter gram second for some odd reason. You're like working for like some British or Canadian company. Wild. Okay, so I'm going to switch us to inch pound second because like inches seem really cool, and so do pounds and seconds. Not whatever like concept of time that the Brits have. So just go to the bottom right and like switch that to IPS.
I'm pretty sure the British are the ones who like that's the imperial system. That's the British system.
That's ridiculous. Okay, well, we're using it regardless. They drive on the wrong side of the road, but they've got this right then. Okay.
I might be wrong, but that's what I thought it was. I'll look it up. They do have weird like slug and stone and stuff like that.
Yeah, they need some help. I agree. If you're British, I love you. So don't take that the wrong way. It's just very unique culture.
My mom's from the UK. I'm half British.
Okay, well, thank you for standing up for the other British people who are going to be watching this. We appreciate you. Okay. So after you switch it to IPS, which maybe the British invented, maybe they didn't. We'll hopefully find out later on in this presentation. We can now go back to equations at the top. So I'm going to type in equations. I'm going to click equations. You can also type in variables and click equations. And then ideally, you're going to get this exact same screen that I have. The screen is very well made, so I assume that the British people made it. Very well made. Okay. So once you got that open, I'm just gonna go back to the slides to like figure out what our variables are. So we've got 3 variables here that we're gonna be creating, and I will like go through with it. We will go through it step by step. Okay, so the first one is the A variable. The A variable is gonna be 2 inches. So I'm gonna go back to SolidWorks. I'm gonna go to global variables. I'm gonna type the letter A. Let's see if it automatically capitalizes it. It doesn't. So I like capital letters, and I'm sure the British people do too. So I am going to, okay, well, it doesn't want me to go back. I don't know if my computer's just slow or I am doing something wrong. So I don't normally go back and change things. So let's figure this out together. Let's see what happens if I hit OK. Yeah, there is a syntax error. Yeah, I'm gonna exit without saving changes. Problem solved. But I do want to figure out how to do that because I am surprised it wouldn't let me go back and select it. But I think it's because you're not supposed to write in lowercase letters, maybe. So like, I'm gonna start with global variable A. I want to see if it automatically. So like, the issue is this section of SolidWorks is very picky with syntax. So normally I would write it with quotation marks, but I want to see if we could do it without. So I'm gonna just type in A. I hit enter. Okay, so it automatically puts the quotation marks, so that isn't a problem. It seems that the lowercase might have been the problem before, but I still can't go back and edit. Okay, so I'm just gonna finish this, and we're gonna see if we can go back and edit, because I do want to figure this out for you. I just always do stuff perfectly the first time. So I'm just gonna type 2, and I'm gonna hit enter again, and it's gonna know by default, because we're using inch pound second, that I want 2 inches here. Okay. Okay, so like as soon as you complete it, it lets you go back and change it, which is very odd because like as you saw, I wanted to change it like partway through and I wouldn't be able to. It's like if you come into this scenario again, just finish the equation because SolidWorks is like forcing you to type in the next dialog box before you go back and like change any of the names, but you can go and do that still. So like I hope that makes sense. It just I don't know. I'll talk to Mr. SolidWorks and see if he can fix that for the 2021 edition, because it makes sense that you should be able to go back, but like I mean this isn't like what SolidWorks is like meant for. That's just like a I don't know, like a friendlier user interface. Okay, so we've got A, we've got it set to 2 inches. So all I'm doing is like I'll go through this one more time with the B variable. So I just type in B, hit enter, it brings me right to the next one. Right, so you don't even have to be clicking or doing anything special. We just can really stay on our keyboards to kind of speed things up. So I'm going to set B to 1.5 inches. If we were using millimeter gram second, we could go 1.5 and then type like IN, and it would like understand that we want inches. Like alternatively, like right now, I could go back and like make it millimeters, but nobody likes millimeters. We're fans of inches here, and the British people. So we're just going to hit enter there. And so I'm just going to keep going. Okay. It doesn't like the IN, but you can do it, I promise. It just doesn't like it because we're in inches, I believe. But like another alternative, it's like 1.5, the units tab. Sorry about that. I appreciate it. Okay. The units tab, you can like click through here what you want and it'll automatically set it. Like maybe you don't remember what a UN is, but for some reason you need a UN. I don't know what a UN is, but we're gonna click it. So now it's a UN. I just hit enter and it's like stays as a UN. That's what a UN is. It's like, I guess, a micro inch. Kind of cool. Something like that. So no, we don't want that. We want regular inches. So I'm just gonna hit enter. And it worked this time. So I think that this like menu just like, it's not as streamlined as like other stuff in SolidWorks. So like if you're running into problems, just fix them. So I'm just gonna hit enter again. We've got our 1.5 inches and now I'm gonna go C. C was another number, 0.25 inches. 0.25, hit enter. Okay, perfect. It's like once you guys have this, I'll give you a second, just like get caught up, just hit OK at the top and we're done. And we don't have to touch this part again. Let me know if are you having any problems?
No, I'm just looking at the link that Glenn sent.
Oh no. It probably has, okay, let's see. So what's the answer?
The answer is, so it's imperial system is originally British, and then they adopted the metric system. So the whole world
Why?
imperial system, the whole world used the imperial system, and then I think the French came out with the metric system. And
French are the problem. I'm sorry, if you're French, you're not the problem.
No.
It's in France.
Was it? It's the office is in France, right? The one with the
I don't know. I'm not sure.
Yeah, and then
Yeah.
yeah. And then the whole world did it except America.
Yeah, the US was stubborn.
Ridiculous.
Uses the metric system.
Okay, fantastic. That was really fascinating, and I had no clue that there was such a rich history between selecting inches or millimeters. But I'm just glad that the whole world has decided that seconds is the way to go. There is no country which I've found yet which doesn't have the second. Maybe they have the disecond or something. Okay, cool. Okay, so once you have this all set up, I'm just gonna hit OK at the top right. And so now the equations section will open up on the left under our like features tree. We're gonna call this the features tree until I stop calling it the features tree. So on the left, there's like a little arrow. You can click on it. And you can quickly preview what the value of your variables are. And you can leave this open. So like as we're modeling, if there's something that would be 2 inches, you could just use this variable instead. If it's gonna be 1.5 inches, you can use this variable instead. And so we're going to be doing this with, I believe, entirely variables. There might be like one dimension that we put in. Okay, so as I mentioned before, we're going to need 2 things in order to design this. We're going to need a path, and we're going to need a profile. So the process of doing this, you're always going to want to create your path first. So it's path, then profile. So you want to figure out where it's going to go before you design what is going to go, okay? So we're going to start by designing this path. So it's this gorgeous shape. I think it's called a slot. I believe there's actually a slot tool at SolidWorks for making this. I didn't use the slot tool. We can check out both ways of doing it. Okay. So we can get pretty creative here. You guys are like very talented at SolidWorks now. So I'm going to show you like a few ways that come to mind at doing this. So I don't actually remember exactly which method I picked. I think I know what I did. I think I just did lines and arcs because like I'm pretty boring. But look at this. Look at this tool right here. This is called a slot. And so, boom, that's a chain right there. So we can go and do this, and it'll apply all the necessary relations we need, except for the dimensions. That's exactly the same shape. Incredible. And as a result, everything's going to be like proportional. You're going to already have like tangents for your arc. The only thing you're going to have to do is like center it. And so when you design this, there's like a center point that comes with it. And so you can go click on that center point, hold control, click on the origin, and click coincident. Another way that you could do that is you click the line, you hold control, you click the origin, and then you do a midpoint. So I'm just going to do this, and then I'm going to delete it. I'm going to do it another way. And I'm going to delete it and do it another way, okay? So you can pick whichever way that you prefer. I think inherently this is probably the fastest way to do it because you don't need like relations, that you can do dimensions. I'll do the dimensions super quick just so you can see that process 3 times because it's a little bit finicky. So as you can see here, like actually I'll just show you once we're on the model. So on the right side, this length right here, we want it to be 2 inches. So the very first variable that we set was the A variable. And so the A variable we set to 2 inches. And so what we're going to want to do here is in order for this, okay, I'll show you 2 ways. The way you don't want to do it, you just want to type A and then hit enter and hit enter again. Why is it showing it to me in like millimeters? That is not good. Okay, we're going to go A again. Okay, let's see. Okay, we got this now. Okay, I think it was showing it to me in millimeters because the dimension, did the slot just change there? Did it like look like it shrank or it grew? I don't think it did at all. Okay, that's strange. So like by default, it should not be doing that. That is just like a bug, I guess, because it should be showing everything in inches because we've chosen inches at the bottom, and so it knows that's our default dimension. Okay, so I'm gonna go back. I'm going to type A again. I'm gonna try hitting enter again and see if it does the 5.7 because I'm just genuinely curious. So I hit enter, and no, it goes to 2 inches. And it says 2 inches. Okay, that's very obscure. I guess that's the conversion to something. Interesting. Okay, so this is what you don't want to do. You don't want to just type in A and then hit enter. You'll see your dimension, things look right, and then hit enter again because there's going to be a key thing missing, and that's going to be your link to your variable. So all you did right here, or all I did, is I made it so that the value of A is the same as the value here, but this is not linked to A. So when you link it to A, this is what it looks like. Okay. I hit equal sign first. This is like the most important part of linking any variable is you got to start with hitting the equal sign, and then I hit A. So now when I hit enter, nothing happens. Okay, I type in A, and now I'm gonna click this like globe right here. Okay, so I click the globe, like the value below it. It is like saying you don't just want the letter, you actually want the variable, which I absolutely do. I believe you can change it though, so that you can just hit enter. But like for now, just click it. It's easier. You're gonna know that you're clicking the right thing, and then it's gonna be the variable. So I click on it, and so now because the equal sign is in front, which is like the one requirement SolidWorks has, when I hit enter, it's gonna say 2 inches again. But before, when it said 2 inches, it didn't have this globe beside it. But the real way you can tell if you did it right is when I hit enter one more time, you're going to get the sigma symbol right here, the same sigma that we had from the equations here. So now this variable is officially linked, and I will show you what that means in a second. So I'm just gonna throw the other variable on super quick so we can kind of fool around. So the next one is 1.5, which is our B variable. And so that's going to be our distance from here to here. So once again, don't just type B and hit enter. Start with the equal sign. Otherwise, you're not going to get the sigma. And if you're not getting the sigma, you're not doing this right. So I'm going to go equal B. B is going to pop up on the bottom, right? So it's not going to let, oh, well, that time it did let me do it. Okay, I don't know. Honestly, it might be because my computer's slow that like SolidWorks is doing that. Like I was right initially, and then SolidWorks is like, I want to make you not look right. So I'm going to click on this again. So what you can do, and if for some reason it's not working, this is what you will do. So what you can do is type equal sign, the letter that you want. You don't actually have to click down here, as I just proved to myself once again. You can just hit the enter sign. Only hit the enter sign so many times before SolidWorks decides that you actually have to click the green check mark, which I don't believe is actually a thing, but I have to click the green check mark. I can guarantee this is not my own flaw. This is entirely some visual nonsense from like SolidWorks not liking my computer. I promise. I don't make mistakes. Okay. So now we've got the sigma in both places. And like, I'm going to show you why we want the sigma now. And then I'm going to go back and delete all this and do it once again. So that like you get some like extra experience knowing that you have to type in an equal sign. Okay. So like now that I've designed this, I'm just going to extrude it. This is not what we're doing. I just want to like, I'm just showing you something very visual, which is going to be quite helpful. So we used both the variables A and B here. So I'm going to go into equations. This is what I get from right-clicking on it. If I left-click, absolutely nothing happens. Let's see if I hover. Nothing happens. So we click a right-click, okay? And I click Manage Equations. So that's going to pop up the screen that we had before. Alternatively, you can type in equations at the top. Boom. It saves everything from before. It's not like we're making new equations, so it's going to show everything we did. So say we design this and we're like, that looks absolutely atrocious. I should have never picked 2. So now we're going to change that to 3 inches, and we're going to change this to 0.5 inches. So like now there's going to be a notable visible difference if this is properly done. So I just hit enter. I'm going to hit enter again. So it's like fully updated. And so at the bottom, okay, we won't go over this yet. We'll revisit this in a second. So I'm just going to hit OK. And so because we linked our variables, SolidWorks then went and adjusted based off of the numbers that we set here. And so this is going to lead into a super cool tool, which I'm just going to show you briefly because we're not quite at the level where we're going to be using this, but I want you to know that it's there and like the general gist of it. So I'm going to go manage equations. I'm going to change this back. I think this was 2. I think the other one was 1.5. If mine looks different, it's because I didn't bother to check the values. Okay. Boom. Okay, excellent. So I'm going to get rid of this boss extrude because we never wanted to extrude it. And I'll show you some other ways that you could have done the slot. So slot tool is like super useful because of the relationship it applies inherently. So in creating the slot, because there is specific geometry that requires a slot to be a slot, it sets that these 2 lines right here, this one on the right and this one on the left, are the same length. And so if we were to draw this with just lines, so I'm just going to delete this and draw it with just lines, you're going to notice that like by default, the lines have no relation between them. So I'm going to create an arc. The lines have no relation between them to like, in which they have to mandatorily be the same length. So like I could draw it out here, create the arc again, and we're just going to complicate things for ourselves, right? So like, that looks horrible. Did that even click? Okay, I just want to make sure that these are the same point because I kind of feel like they didn't. Okay, yeah, they did. Okay. Okay, so whatever this is. So I'm going to click on this, hit Control and click on this. So what we were creating before is a tangent arc, and so I'm just going to apply the tangent relation. The other times, tangent automatically applied as we were designing it. And so there are ways, like while drawing this, that if we are more tedious with it and less like careful, or sorry, more tedious and more careful, we could make sure that all these relationships are applied while we're drawing. So if I wait to make sure that this line is lined up here, then it'll just like, we're not going to get that weird obscurity that we had before. Oops. So now I'm going to go. I don't want that. Let's see, I think it's doing it again. I can't tell. Yeah, it totally is, because like that is not a straight line. So I'm just gonna press the A key. It'll like straighten it back out. Realistically, if I was on a faster computer in which stuff like updated normally, I could have gone back to like that point twice, right? So like you go to it once to create an arc. If you go back to it a second time, maybe I'll do it this time. No, I can't get close enough to do it because my computer's just slow. This is not like a computer that should ever run SolidWorks. It's like a miracle that it does. Okay, fantastic. So we're just gonna click the A key again. We get a straight line, boom. We want both of our straight lines to be the same length. As you can see, at the very bottom here, it is showing relationships that are going to be applied. So there's going to be, okay, like I'm looking directly to the right of the pencil. And so you're going to see 2 yellow blocks and 1 white block. It is very small, and I hope that you're able to see it, but this is going to be your same experience. So like if you want to know what SolidWorks is about to apply instead of just guessing, you can look here. So if I click left on my mouse, I'm going to have a vertical relationship. So the vertical relationship will just say that this line will always be vertical. There's going to be a tangent relationship, which is the next icon. And so that means that this line and the arc are going to be tangent. There's also a horizontal relationship, which means that the point that like is to the left of where my cursor is, where the other line starts, is going to be horizontal to the point where I click. And so I want that. The slot does that all by default. And so that's why it's really useful for this scenario, but you can still design stuff using lines. It's like every single tool here, except for the letters and like weird curvy things, you can do with the line tool. I mean, you can do weird curvy things with the line tool. I'm going to show you one weird curvy thing later that you can't do with the line tool, and then we're going to learn from it. It's going to be awesome. Okay, so one problem here that was really nice about the slot is we had a center dot, right? And we could have just like used that line that was there and like line it up with the origin, and then we're good to go. But here, we only have geometry in the center from the arc, right? What you can do is you can line this stuff up by making it vertical. We're going to get really creative here, okay? So like, you saw how I made that vertical? I clicked this point, I clicked this point, I clicked the origin. I said, I want this to be vertical. This is some high level stuff here. What we're about to do is we're going to center the origin by being very precise. So I am going to hover over this, and I'm going to find the center dot, the midpoint. I'm going to click on the midpoint. I'm going to hover over this very carefully. And so like when you're hovering, if you're not close to the center dot, okay, if you wait long enough, it shows up. But if you're not like in right away close to the center dot, okay, maybe they changed it. No matter what, the center dot eventually pops up if you hover over long enough. And the whole concept is like if you're trying to just press the line, you're going to press the line. But if you really want the center point, you're just going to have to wait a second. And so it's this very little yellow square thing. I'm going to hold control. I'm going to click that. So now we have 2 points. Just like we had 2 points before, and then the origin, and we said vertical, I'm going to make these horizontal with the origin. So I've been holding control down each time I've selected something. If I click horizontal, okay, I didn't dimension this beforehand, and that's why I just squished it down, but we're ready for dimensions. I did what we were hoping. But like, look at how incredibly messy and tedious this was because we didn't use like the slot tool. Okay, I'm going to show you one more way to do this just super quickly before I dimension anything. I'm going to go to rectangle. I'm going to click center rectangle. This is going to show you a new tool we haven't touched yet. So center rectangle, I'm going to draw the rectangle. Rectangles are great because they come with like inherent geometry. And so I already locked the center on the origin. And we've got like these fancy lines and everything is vertical and horizontal and it's awesome. But we're missing our arcs. So we can either use the line tool and make it an arc, or we can use this tool here, which is like actually the arc tool. I didn't click it. Of course I didn't. Okay. So now we can do arc. I want it to automatically be tangent, but like we're just going to be annoying and like just go over the tangent tool one more time. I'm going to double click control, boom, tangent. We're going to want one more arc. And so I'm going to show you what you have to be careful of while doing this. So I'm going to do that again, just like you don't have to worry about your own like senses and making sure that it's right. You can just do that super quick. Okay, and so now we have a problem. And so that problem is we have this line up here, we have this line down here. And so I'm just gonna like show you what happens if you run into this situation, you do something like this, and you go to extrude it. If you go to extrude it, SolidWorks is gonna ask you, what part do you wanna extrude? Do you wanna just extrude this? Do you wanna extrude all three? But there's like a disconnect between them all. And so the special menu opens up at the bottom. This is a menu that like a lot of students, this is the nightmare menu, okay? This is the menu you only use if you absolutely have to use it, or if you're like skilled enough to know what it even means. And so what happens is when you have geometry that's like divided by like lines, this is why we use center lines. So if this line here was a center line, SolidWorks wouldn't consider it as something dividing up geometry. But now SolidWorks thinks that we like intentionally have divided stuff up and wants us to select specific contours that we want extruded. And so when this stuff is extruded, it tends to cause a lot of problems later. It's the reason it causes problems later is stuff isn't attached, like they're all individual objects. So if I go back and I actually like select all of this, if we were to produce this slot, there is inherently going to be problems later unless they kind of clean this up from like past years. So I just would say avoid it. Be very cautious if this is the case, because usually it'll drop down and force you into the selected contours menu because you've made a mistake. So it is a good way to at least catch that. And you're not going to want to extrude this because there are just inherent problems that come up later because there's like a divide within the geometry and SolidWorks doesn't like that, okay? So I'm just going to close that. And so if you look at the sketch here, this is not the normal sketch icon we get. This means that we have created a contour sketch. And so it's an ugly icon because we don't want that. SolidWorks allows it, but we don't want it as scholars. Okay, so I'm going to show you a couple different ways you can do this because like as always, there's a few different ways to do things. So if I wanted to change the bottom line so that it wasn't like a driving geometry and wasn't splitting stuff up, I could click on it and then go to options for construction. So that just makes this the construction line. So we've solved this bottom one. I'm going to show you a different way to do the top one. So there's a tool that we haven't used yet. It's called Trim Entities. This is like a very, very powerful and useful tool in SolidWorks. And so what's going to happen is there's like some professional techniques. We're not going to go over them. We're going to go over like beginner stuff. So like say we drew something and we don't want it. Instead of like clicking on the line and deleting it, I'll show you like some extra special reasons as to why clicking it and won't work. Clicking it and deleting it won't work for all situations. But literally you click, you hold down. This is our knife. Like, look at this. So as long as I don't touch anything, nothing happens. But boop, I cross over. I just absolutely annihilated that line. And so I can go back and reverse it. So like it made a red square where things happen. So I'm going to like just keep going. I'm going to cause a lot of problems. But I can also go backwards if I go and I put my mouse over the red rectangle. Come on, please. It's like so hard. Okay. Oh, we got that one back. Beautiful. But we do want to get rid of this one. It's like it's completely gone. I'm just not going to touch that. And so now when I let go, that line is completely gone. And so, okay, I'm going to just like show you something else because this is where power trim like becomes really useful. Say we were like creating the most obscure shape you've ever heard of in your life. So I'm drawing a circle over this. This is an absolute mess. Like if I said SolidWorks, make this, SolidWorks would be like, what is wrong with you? And I would like appreciate its criticism. So I'm going to click trim entities. Say like, we want the slot part. We don't want this. We don't want this. We don't want this. And so if we deleted the line, it would like get rid of this whole portion here. It wouldn't be able to do what we're trying to go for here, which is whatever this is. This is what we wanted. This was the shape I always intended. And so now we've made a lemon. Okay. And it's like if you ever are trying to make a lemon, that's how you make a lemon. And so you're going to come across situations where trim entities is going to be the tool you absolutely want to use. Because if I like, I'm just control Zing. There's no like magic tool. If I like went and clicked on this line and I click delete, like it gets rid of everything attached. If I click this line, I can't only get rid of this portion here. And I click delete, it's getting rid of the whole thing. And that's bad because that's not what we want. So I'm just going to go back to before the circle. Fantastic. It's like now I'm going to just apply the geometries that we wanted. So let's see what those were. It was like A and B. I think A was our bigger one, which was the side, and then B was the one across. And so remember, always use the equal sign. So equals A. So this geometry is going to change drastically.
So
I think
I have a comment.
I'd love to hear the comment.
One more question.
I'd love to hear the question.
So I tried to dimension it like we did with the sigma, but the sigma only showed up on one side and not the other one. So like, you know how like I wanted to link A to the side.
Yep.
But it just says it's 2, even though I said equal to. And then I tried to link B to the shorter one, and it worked with the sigma. So I did the exact same thing. So I don't know why.
Okay, I just would say go back. So like I will do it. I'll just like show you on my screen. So like say this was supposed to be B. I assume what happened is the equal sign didn't register when you meant to put an equal sign. Mm-hmm. So I'm just gonna click B. If I hit enter, I don't know why it does that. It's definitely converting it to millimeters. And it should not. It says inches. Okay, well, let's see. Okay, so this is first just for like my own curiosity, and then I will explain.
Yeah.
Okay, interesting. Okay, so like there was a genuine problem. Okay, so if I type in B and I just hit enter, SolidWorks decides to ignore that. So like you got to be very careful and like on top of your stuff with the variables. It's like if you want to be really safe, just like click it down here, hit enter. It's like, yep, that's exactly what I want. We're going to go ahead.
Yeah, but there's no sigma thing.
Yes, exactly, because I didn't use the equal sign.
Yeah.
And so I still use the variable or the value of it. So if I want to change that, I can double click on the value. It'll open up the screen again. All I do is I add the equal sign and I just start over. So I go equal sign B. You can either, okay, so like I kind of figured it out. You can either hover over this so like SolidWorks knows you want that. So I didn't even click this. I just like passed over it. Or you can click on it and like it'll use the value. If like I don't do that, it just ignores me. And it's like, I'm very confused why the letter B is not a number, right? And so it's just like SolidWorks has like so much going on within this feature that in order to get better clarification and to make things more complicated for us, it does this. Honestly, I am going to ask if like they could change that for like next year's edition because it's just kind of annoying.
Yeah. No,
because
you know how you said double click it to change it? I double click and it doesn't give me the dialog box.
Okay. Yep, no, that's totally fair. Okay, let me like, so I think it depends where you click and like how fast you click. And like if the computer's slow, it just makes it even harder. It's like, I'm very sorry. Because like if I click once, it'll give you this. And I assume that's what's happening.
Yeah.
So you do have to click decently fast. But like if you're on a slow computer, it doesn't really matter. Yeah, so you'll eventually get it. Every now and then when I'm clicking it, I'll get that and I just like click away and I do it again. Like, so I've just kind of gotten used to it. It's like if that is popping in, see if that even does anything. I just like, I mean, I used to have problems with this, but I just have ignored it. I haven't tried this. Okay, so if I type something in, so it still works, but you want the proper menu, right? That like pops stuff up below and is like trying to be helpful.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
Yeah, it just gives you a 2 still.
Yeah, but okay, yeah. So we want the proper. This is like the smart dialog box. The other one is a dumb dialog box. So like you can still use this like if it's just like a minor thing like 1 click, 1.5. But I don't think you can actually assign a variable here because like I went through the exact process of equal. I even typed out the quotation marks, equals a quotation mark, and here you don't get the sigma, right? Because I think it's just a dumb dialog box. It's only for quick stuff. Okay. So now I'm just going to go equals B. B is going to pop up. I'm going to hover over it and just hit enter, or you can double click on it and then hit enter and like keep hitting enter until you're free, basically.
Sounds good.
So now we've got 1.5. I'm just going to smart dimension this side. I'm going to go equals A. I'm going to hit enter. It's not going to know what's going on. I'm going to hit A. I'm going to click the down key because we're getting fancy. Hit enter again. Hit it enough times and boom, we've got double sigmas. And so now we're ready to like fool around and like have some fun. Okay, exciting. Okay, cool. Okay, so next we're going to create our circle. And so this is like going to be some magic that's about to occur. Like the magic at Disney. Okay, so we're not going to click a feature. So it's not like we're going to go in Extrude. We're not going to do anything. So if you've done that, don't do that. So we're literally, don't press the X. Do not press the X. Click this guy. So if we click that, it's going to keep our sketch. It's just going to like hang out in the background. It's not going to like be hurting us. It's just going to be there. And we're going to like move on with our life until we need it. If you have created a feature, tell me and I'll show you how to fix it because I don't feel like doing it. Brilliant. My class is so talented. They like listen. They don't go ahead. Probably because they couldn't go ahead if they wanted to, but that's beyond the point. But yeah, fantastic. Okay, so we created that path now, and now we need the profile. So in order to create the profile, I'm going to go to the top plane. I'm going to click normal too because I like to face the stuff that I'm drawing. I'm going to go to sketch. And so this is where our C variable comes in. So I'm just going to do this a little quick. And then I want you to make mistakes. So I don't actually. If you like don't make mistakes, you're like so talented. So I'm gonna click circle. You might be like as talented as me. And then I'm gonna draw that. I'm gonna go smart dimension. Remember, oops, we want the equal sign. So I'm gonna go equals C. C pops up. Boom, boom. Variables are super useful. All the examinations for certifications of SolidWorks require them. But like you can go through your whole life using SolidWorks without ever touching them. So pretty incredible. So now we've dimensioned this. It's like, look, it's still blue. I can still move it around. And that totally makes sense because it's not like locked in space. We don't want to put it in the origin. I drew this off to the side intentionally. You don't want it locked onto anything because we're doing something super fancy. Like realistically, you want to be like using your touchpad and like bringing it out here, right? Like we're trying to like complicate things. So I'm going to go over here. We don't want any additional relations applied. And this is where things like get super cool. So in order to do what we're about to do, this is the most important step. So pay super attention and you'll never make this mistake. Okay? Like this takes all of your focus. Write this down if you have to, because if you ever want to use this tool that we're about to use, and this is the only way you could ever use it, you need to apply a very special relation. So the relation is called the Pierce relation. If you are not paying attention, it's in the notes. If you are paying attention, you'll never have to look at the notes. So what we're going to do is we're going to click the center of our circle. Okay, so whatever the profile is that you're using, you're going to click the center of that. I'm now going to hold down Control, and I'm going to click a line on the path. It doesn't, it matters which line. Okay, so like if we picture this, when we're looking at it from like the proper way. Okay, moral of the story, don't click the arcs, okay? You're going to click these lines on the side because we're drawing on the front plane. The front plane, you can click any line that intersects with the plane that you're drawing on. Boom, those are the words I'm looking for. Okay, so we're drawing on the front plane. The front plane intersects with this line and this line. And so we are trying to relation it based off of this line or this line. So I'm going to hold down control. I still have the center clicked from before. I'm going to click this line here. And there's only one relation we can apply, and that's the Pierce relationship. So I'm going to click it, and it's going to move. And so what it does is it finds where this line intersects with the plane that you're drawing on, and it places whatever point you've selected on that line. So in order to do the Pierce relationship, you need a point and you need a line that intersects with that plane. You can do it no other way. If you click the outside of the circle and you click the line, you're not going to get it. It has to be the center. You could also do this. I want you to do yours with a circle, but like just so you can see that you could do this with a square. Oh no. See, I almost automatically applied a relationship because I'm not looking at it dead on. So I'm going to go back to looking at it dead on. I'm going to like scroll away, get off my screen. I'm going to go rectangle, boom. So we want our rectangle to be a square this time because we do. So I'm going to go smart dimension equals C. Boom. I didn't do it because I didn't hover over because I like to do stuff fast. And I'm not used to using my mouse more than I have to. Boom. Okay. We're going to do this again. Equals C. Boom. Spot on. Scholar students. I didn't click it this time. Boom, 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 boom. Lots of enter keys. Okay. And so now I'm going to click this point. Realistically, I could do it with this point, but I don't think it would work later on. We want the center. We want the center of our profile. Hold control. Click this line. Oh no. Did I not click? I don't think I clicked the line. Oh no. We've made an uh-oh somewhere. Let's see. We're going to fix this. Oh, I'm still in smart dimension. Ha! That is why. Don't be in smart dimension while doing this because we're not dimensioning. Boom. Pierce. Pew. Locked in. Completely defined, fully black. Okay, and now the magic happens. I'm not going to change mine back to a circle. The teacher uses a square, the students use a circle, okay? I want you to do this real quick, and I'll show you the next step, and then I'll go backwards, because like, it doesn't hurt to see it more than once. So now we're going to use a tool called swept boss/base. So before we're using extruded boss/base, we could only go straight. Now we're going to use swept. Swept is going to say, I want this profile. Haha. These silly people think I'd use a circle. No, I'm the teacher. I use a square. So I clicked it. Now it wants the path. So the path is going to be this sketch. If I just click anywhere on the sketch, it'll understand what's going on. Alternatively, you can like drop down menu, boop, boop, find the sketch, click it there. It doesn't matter. I click the sketch. Look at this. All chains are square in the end. Not really, but okay. There's like some other options that like I don't think we'll be exploring unless we explore them at the third class, which is not going to be next week. It's going to be once you have made more progress in your project. And so maybe then we will explore this further if I feel that it'll be of value. Okay. So for now, just so that you know you can actually make stuff like this, I'm going to hit the check mark. And so actually the square is kind of lame because you could have made the square any other way. You could have just like gone to the top, made your slot. That's lame. We're changing this. The teacher does not use a square. The teacher uses a triangle. Couldn't have done it with a triangle. So we're going to go, triangles are kind of complicated. So like this would be kind of fun. So you know, I'll delete the sweep just so you can like watch me do the sweep again. So both things are going to be saved. I'm going to go edit sketch, normal 2. I'm going to delete this.
Quick
Hey.
question.
Yeah, go for it.
So when you try to make a new sketch in mid-air, right? Like you're trying to the profile.
Yep.
Why won't they let me do that? Like it's saying that I can only do that on a plane or on the existing sketch I have of the path.
I don't think you're in a sketch then. Is that possible? Do you have these 2 icons at the top right?
No, so I'm not in the sketch.
Okay, so you need to be.
I want to open a new one. How do I do that?
Okay, so you go to the left side of your screen.
Yeah.
You go to front plane. I'm just gonna leave so I can show you so it pops up.
So you can just, you have to click a plane. No, that's.
Yeah, you have to either click a plane or a face so SolidWorks knows where you're sketching. There is something called 3D sketching in which you don't need to. We're not going to cover 3D sketching because we're just not going to. I don't even use it myself unless I absolutely have to, and there are going to be a few situations, but the situations are few, and I don't think you're ready to experience 3D sketching.
Yeah, no, that's entirely fair. That makes sense. Thank you.
And you can do just about everything with 2D sketching. It just simplifies some things for really weird stuff. And in that case, I'll use it, but there's a reason it's not it's not the most important thing. It's only in emergencies use 3D sketching. So don't feel like you're missing out because you are, but you're not. Okay, so I'm gonna go. Okay, so I got rid of that. So I'm gonna go to the front plane. I'm gonna do a rectangle or a triangle this time. So there is no triangle tool. Ooh, this would actually be kind of fun. Whatever this shape is. I think they call that a hexagon. You know what? We're gonna cover a triangle later. I'm doing a hexagon. Oh, I didn't even click on the plane. How lame. Sketch. Boom. Hexagon. Boom. Hexagon comes with a center. Boom. Want hexagon small. Okay. What way do we want our hexagon to stand? I want this and this to be vertical. We want the pointy stuff. So now I'm going to smart dimension. You know what? We're going to make this C equals C. It's if you ever need to draw this really cool shape that they call a hexagon, this is how. Okay. So now I'm going to click on the point. We're going to apply the pierce relationship. Hold control, click the line, pierce, boom, on the center. Go features, swept boss / base. Only the teacher uses hexagons. Okay, I'm going to click on that. Click on the profile. Boom, this is your bike's now safe. Okay. And so you can really do this with any profile. The key is you need a point ideally at the center, which can be difficult depending on how weird your shape is. But just keep that in mind. Whatever point you set and click, that is going to be what is moved around your reference, right? So you can kind of see how this all comes together. Okay, cool, fun, maybe a little bit, hopefully. Okay. So that is the sweep. Now I'm going to show you something extreme. Okay. So I don't expect you to be able to. I just want to show this to you because it's pretty darn cool, and we put in all the effort using variables and stuff like that. So you wouldn't use it for this part, but I want to show it to you anyway because where we're at, and I don't think we're going to get there with a different model today. And I don't normally teach this ever. So bear with me because it's super cool. Okay, so I'm gonna go to the top. I'm gonna type in design. We're gonna create a design study. Just watch me because I'm gonna be clicking a lot of random things, and I'm not really trying to teach it to you. I'm just kind of trying to show it to you, I guess, if that makes sense. So this is one of the greatest benefits of having variables within SolidWorks. So I'll just kind of show you what this does. So variables, add parameter. So basically I can okay, I'll explain what this is first so that this at least makes sense. So a design study is this really neat feature in SolidWorks in which you you use variables within your model. And so as you saw before, when we change the variables, our model changes too. Sometimes you're going to be working on something in which you don't know exactly the dimension that you want, but you have constraints for what that dimension is. So for example, we're creating some beam, I don't know. And the beam can either be 10 inches. It could be anywhere between 10 and 20 inches for the application that we're doing. But we want to optimize it so that we have the strongest beam for the specific weight. And so what you do is you select different parameters that you've already set. It's I'm going to go add a parameter. I want this to be our variable A. Okay. It wants a name. I'm just going to call it A. We're going to go model dimension, global variable, because we've already set this up. Value, is it going to let me link it? Okay, wait, part of my screen's cut off. Okay, so no, it is going to ask to link it. Okay, so You basically combine your model with simulations, and it runs the whole study for you, and then tests all the different values that you put in or allow it to pick. It changes the model accordingly, so you don't have to model your thing 10 times with 10 different dimensions and run different simulations. And then it'll do it all for you by changing based off of your variable. I'll show you in a sec a little bit more clearly, because like this is a lot. And it'll basically say like, this is the best one for the scenario you've given me. Like this is the length that you want. And it'll like, you can run like hundreds of lengths. You can run like all kinds of crazy stuff. So I don't use this often, but like it's one thing that when you do use it is extremely useful. Okay, let me see how I link it though. Oh, here it is. I didn't notice that down here. Okay, so like at the bottom here, it lets me choose what variable. So like we're gonna fool around with A, which is this dimension. We're gonna fool around down here with B. And we're gonna fool around down here. Okay, it needs a name. We call it C, just like to simplify things. Oh, I didn't change it to global variable. That's why. Okay, there we go. Boom, C. We're not gonna do anything with this one down here. We're just gonna ignore it. Okay, okay. Okay, so like down here, it's gonna update as a result. So we are going to play around with all 3 dimensions. And so let me see if I can make this bigger, because like I could barely see it. Fantastic. Okay, so now I get to pick a range. So what this means is like it's going to test it with like all combinations of these variables. So I have 27 possible combinations here. So this is my minimum constraint value for A. Is 1 inch. My maximum is 3 inches, and I have a step of 1 inch. So what the step means is it's going to check 1 inch, then it's going to check 2 inch, and then it's going to check 3 inch. So it's just like incrementing by 1. If you're just going to increment by 0.75, and you can change all these values. This is just the default it guesses I might want to use. And so I then can set some like constraints. So say it's in the way. Okay, I'm going to bring this back down. Okay, so like say my model cannot be like heavier than a certain amount, or like cannot have a volume greater than something. So I'm gonna say mass. I haven't set a material, so this is like kind of useless. But I'm gonna like go into this feature a little bit more with materials, because we didn't really do that last week. We did only appearances. Okay, so I click that. And so here it's going to say constraint mass. I can then say I want the mass to just be monitored. I want it to be like no matter what be greater than something. So I'm going to say I don't want it ever to be less than 0.01 pounds. Cool, I guess. It'll be more applicable in like a real life situation, right? So like I could set whatever I want. So I could add more constraints, like maybe you can only have a certain volume, like you're limited with the amount of the material you could use. You could then like go and say like, okay, I only have like 100 cubic inches of material of this for this thing like that I can allocate. Make sure that this volume, like after going through these scenarios, we don't want to like go through and calculate each one and make sure that it falls within that constraint. SolidWorks will check at the end and make sure and only present to us the ones that do follow that. It's like if we only have that much material, it'll make sure and recommend to us the one that satisfies that. Even if there is one that uses more material and is stronger and we're looking for something stronger. So goals is going to be what it kind of ranks it based off of in a sense. So goals, I'm going to go add sensor. So once again, there's like a few different options here. So we kind of talked about like mass properties, which is like your volume and stuff like that. You could also make it sure that like your center of mass is in a specific place, which is pretty cool. But like the main times that you're going to be using this, it could be for costing data. Like you might want like a factor, which is like costing data. It doesn't matter because I didn't apply a material, which is kind of stupid. Wait, we can always go and apply a material. Okay, we're going to do that. So I'm going to show you how to do materials too right now. Okay, so like we're going to take a short break from what's at the bottom, just to like focus on what's on the side. So always when we're in SolidWorks, it's going to have this icon here. And it's going to say material not specified by default. There are ways you can change this so that no matter what you're creating, like say you're working at a job where everything you do is like a specific alloy of steel. You can make it so every time that you open SolidWorks, it like automatically is that. But we're not doing that. So we're going to go edit material. So you can actually make materials in SolidWorks too. I'm not going to really go through how, but like if you knew all the properties and it wasn't a material that came built into SolidWorks, like you knew all these values, you could easily create and like fill out and make your own materials. Like maybe you're like experimenting with something like very unique that SolidWorks wouldn't have, and you like need the exact values. You could do that for like simulation purposes. I believe if you just type add materials at the top, like it would guide you to it. You could always just like Google it and watch a video. But like, I just want to make sure that you know that you could do that, because like if you ever run into that situation, you can like just like persevere through it. So we're gonna make this out of, we're kind of lame, so we're gonna make it out of wood. Oak wood, fantastic. So I'm just gonna click apply. And so you're gonna see at the left, instead of material not specified, it's gonna say oak. And so here we like look at the values that SolidWorks has for oak. There's not a lot of stuff going on here because it's oak. And I guess like people don't really care about these cool things, or maybe you just really can't because it's an organic. We'll pick a steel. So you see like there's all these different values here. We're gonna hit apply. It'll just be better for simulation data. Okay, and so you can see the material visually updated as well. So like there's an appearance tied to just about every material that's in there. I don't know if there's any exceptions. And so like if you were to render this, you wouldn't have to go through like our appearance library and find something that looks like this. It's going to be like whatever the closest thing in SolidWorks that looks like it. Okay. But you could go and like change the color. Like maybe you're painting it black and you want to like go into the appearance library like we talked about last week. And so you can like go color. Oh no. I didn't want to do that. But you could like go in here, appearance color. We're going to go metal. Let's see. Okay, like I mean, these are like metal colors. Realistically, we're not just like changing the metal by changing the color, but whatever. I'm making it black. There's like, you can like go through the menus a little bit better and do it. And so once again, like just to go over this really quick, when I drag and dropped it over, it's going to then ask me what I'm trying to apply it to specifically. Do I only want it on that face? Do I want it on the whole sweep, which is like our whole part? Do you want it on the body, which is like our whole part once again? In situations where we work on more complicated things, this will actually apply to all different things. But here we've got like some overlap because it's a very small part. So I'm going to just click the sweep and we're going to make it black. It doesn't matter for this situation, but it's more, I just wanted the weights. Okay, so we're going to go back to the design study. So we've got our one constraint, which is we want it greater than 0.01 pounds. We can set a maximum, but I'm not going to bother because like I can't think of numbers that smart. So goals, add sensor. Mass properties. Okay, so like this is where stuff gets really cool. So like, let's say we've got costing data. We're gonna just say data quantity, total cost. So it's gonna be the manufacturing cost. So somehow it factors that in SolidWorks. I don't know much about that specifically. I actually didn't expect it to do both, but I guess it estimates or like has specific like data based off of what it would probably cost you to manufacture, or maybe it requires you to input that yourself. So here I'm just gonna click material cost. Okay, I hit check mark. So now the goal is going to be to minimize it, or it could be to maximize. Maybe we're just like trying to bling it out, or is close to. So like it's going to then try to minimize our costs. So like by looking across all of them, it's going to like rank these and like present to us which one is the cheapest cost-wise. And then also I want to add another sensor, because I want to show you, okay, realistically, this isn't going to exactly work, but like maybe there's a very specific dimension in our model that like will be changed because of those sizes changing. We can't risk that being changed, or there needs to be something specifically like along a range. We could click a dimension here, or a measurement is kind of like the same thing. Dimension, okay, like measurement is like things that you wouldn't be using smart dimension for. Like there's still measurements on your model, but it's like you're taking measuring tape over it. Where like a dimension is like, I want the dimension between like these two sides that like you can normally smart dimension to be something. Okay, but simulation data is what I really care about. We're not really caring about this, but maybe you're going to come across a situation where you do. Okay, so simulation data. Okay, I don't think it's going to work for this part because I didn't design this part to be like run under simulation, and this also isn't like a classic simulation. I just want to like click some buttons randomly and like force stuff to work here because I didn't prepare it to actually work. It's like when you see stuff popping up, it's more just because I want to show you this. Okay, so you can then, so like there are proper simulations within SolidWorks. This is like a very small fraction of the whole simulation tab that you can add into SolidWorks. You can do both flow simulations for you who are like really passionate about aerospace, which seems to kind of be dwindling from the conversations I was hearing earlier. But like these are all the things we can kind of like experiment with. We can look at stress. We can look at stress intensity. I don't know, like anything that's on here, lots of stress stuff. Oh, that's because I've got stress selected at the top. So only stress stuff. If we want to break away from stress, we can look at strain, displacement. So like it'll actually model like your thing bending. It's like, let's do displacement. The only issue is it's like asking for very specific things. And I'm hoping that because I changed it from being a circle, the circle doesn't work for this 100%. But I'm hoping that like because I'm the instructor and I got to pick a really cool shape, I'll be able to do this. No, it doesn't want to. Okay, so like the geometry is not well set to like easily do this, basically. But I just want to show you that you can do this. You add a factor of safety, stuff like that. So I'm just gonna hit check mark. It's gonna yell at me because like it's not actually gonna do anything. And that's the whole problem because like I can't set it up properly on like a model that looks like this, but like that's not the point. Okay, so now that we've got all this, I'm going to bring this menu when it lets me. Come on, here we go. Almost there. Boom. Okay, fantastic. Okay, so now we're just gonna click run. It's probably gonna yell at me a few more times, but the goal is just to kind of show you what happens here. So it makes like a table in which it experiments with all the different combinations that you could possibly have. And so we're minimizing material cost here. So realistically, we would have set multiple things for it to like kind of pick between. So it would like ideally, maybe it has to be below a certain amount of displacement, you know, it has to be able to handle a certain amount of stress in the specific area. Material cost has to be this. It can't like intrude upon like this specific weight. And so you set all your parameters kind of like how we were doing before, but like more meticulously because you would actually be doing an intelligent project and not just whatever this is. And so here you can see this is the optimal one, which is 0. It's literally just going to be the smallest of all the dimensions because I only set it for material cost, and of course it's going to be the cheapest. But it'll show you all the different combinations and the corresponding costs at the bottom. So like it'll do all the simulations for all the different combinations. It'll be pretty awesome. And then you can then pick out of all these, like say, even though this was the minimum one, I want this for some reason. Then like you can basically set that and your model will update. You can't really see that, but your model will update accordingly. I can't really pull this down. So design study is like the only word you need to know in order to know that this is in SolidWorks. And so that's why I thought it would be really important to like go over. So like if I click this, see like as I go through them, it's going to go through all the different scenarios. Look at this, like maybe this is what you want. And so you just want to constrain it accordingly and like set some goals and stuff like that. And SolidWorks will like do all the work for you. Otherwise you would have to go through, change your variables by yourself one by one and run a few different simulations. Let's see like how weird do these get? That's kind of normal. That's kind of weird. That's kind of normal. Okay, cool. So it just kind of like fools around with everything. And you can just go through and click whichever one based off of the criteria it gives you. So super fast, super easy. And if you're on a strong computer, you can run like a lot of simulations very quickly and get very valuable data to then pick between. So this is like a professional level thing that you would not be taught normally. So it's pretty cool stuff. And like, you're not gonna really know all the details of like how to like do a simulation and stuff like that. But like maybe somewhere down the road you will. You know, and then you're going to be like, hey, boss, you're kind of wasting a lot of resources here. You should promote me and I'll show you, you know, what you should be doing, you know, and your boss will be happy. You'll be happy. And you know what they say? I mean, they say happy wife, happy life. I don't have anything else that rhymes, so we're going to stick with that. Happy boss, happy moss. Who knows? Okay. Fantastic. So I'm just going to move the zoom. Okay, so that is all I wanted to do for this specific model. So now we can take a nice break. I say we take like a 10-minute break because we kind of went for a while. So I hope that's all right. And you can just like go drink a water. I don't know what else you can really do in 10 minutes. You can go drink a water. And then we'll regroup in 10 minutes. So like, you know what, I'll just like round up. I'll give you 13 minutes. I'm feeling wild. Okay, so like we're gonna come back at 2:50, and then we're gonna work on the next model. And so if you want to like take some time to explore the design study in the meantime, you're more than welcome to. But I will be gone for a few minutes, and then I'll be back to like answer any questions. So I hope that's all right. Okay, I can leave my screen open. Zoom. Okay. Yeah, okay. I'll leave my screen open like in case you're like wondering and you want to watch this. I'm just gonna turn my camera off and my audio. Like if you want to like look at my screen for some odd reason. Okay, I'll be back. 2:50.
So
Okay.
anyways, like when I
The
did
problem,
Pierce thing, I put it directly on.
I've got you. Okay, so you're on the wrong plane with your sketch. So this is actually really good because like nobody's had this happen yet, and it is a real problem. So what you could do, although there's a few things that are concerning me right now. Okay, can you just click once where you are right now? Left click. Okay, no, that is what I thought. Okay. Okay, so the first thing we're gonna do is, okay, you're gonna go to the bottom left and you're gonna open up Sketch 4. Edit Sketch, which is gonna be the top left icon there. Yep. So now I want you, oh, you did pierce it. That's interesting. Okay. For my own curiosity's sake, you're actually just gonna back out. We're gonna try something different. So you're gonna go to the top right. You can click either the red X or the weird arrow guy. It doesn't matter.
Okay.
Both will do the same thing.
X?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, sure. Hit discard changes and exit. Okay. So you're gonna go down to Sketch 4 again, but this time you're gonna right click. Okay. Can you go towards the top? I need to like take a look at what the icons say. Go to the left one. That one. Click that. So this is edit sketch plane. So you drew your sketch on the front plane when you all, okay. So like I know I said draw it on the front plane, but it's because your other sketch is also on the front plane that you're having problems. So we will change this one. Actually, we should change the other one. Just hit the X. Sorry. Okay, so now go to sketch 1, and we're gonna do the same thing. Right click, edit sketch plane. That one right there. Yep, spot on. Okay, so now you're gonna click the drop down menu, which is like a little bit to the right at the top where it says part 1. You're super close, a little bit higher to the right. A little bit to the, yes, spot on. Okay, now you're gonna go down to top plane. That's exactly what we want. Now hit the check mark. Okay, so now, okay, this is where my curiosity comes in because I'll explain. Okay, I want you to go straight to features and then swept boss / base. You poor kid, you can't rotate. Okay, so you've got, okay, that is not the sketch you want selected. Okay, here. We can still do this without you rotating. So you're gonna go to the very top, okay, on the left where it says sketch 1. Man, I'm not good at like describing stuff. Okay, go to the left, sorry. You're gonna have to bear with me. So where it says sketch 1 and is blue and it's like a box and it's been selected and that's where the profile is. So what's been selected there is not the profile but the path. So you're gonna click that once. You're gonna go over to your circle that you've drawn that is like grayed out. Click the circle, yep. Okay, And now you're going to click any other line that isn't your circle. So like you're going to click your path. You don't have to rotate to be able to do that. Or maybe you, okay, we're going to do it a different way. You're going to go all the way to the left where it says sketch 1 out of that menu that we just dropped down a little bit earlier. Click sketch 1. Let's see if this works. Wow, it did work.
Promising.
Hit the check mark. Okay, so that's actually super interesting. I'll explain why it's super interesting. So what Safe did is he had the sketch path and the profile on the exact same plane. And so that doesn't make sense because you are trying to move a flat object with no thickness along the path. And that's why he had a problem. Because we want it facing outwards like this and going around the path to extrude. But it was facing like this, completely flat and like parallel. And so therefore there was nothing going on when it moved around. But Safe did manage to apply a pierce relationship by clicking the center and clicking the path. And so what we just did is we didn't delete the pierce relationship or change anything. We changed the plane that the initial path was sketched on. So instead of the path being on this plane here, along with the sketch being like this, we made it so that the path flipped onto a different plane and was drawn like this. And then the path, the same pierce relationship stayed and all the geometry worked. So you didn't even have to reassign the pierce relationship, which was actually really cool. And it stayed and just adapted to the change of having everything on the same plane to one of the things being moved to the plane that it was supposed to be on. So I thought that was kind of cool. And it worked, which is awesome. Okay, good stuff, Safe. That looks fantastic.
Yeah, thanks so much for the help. Good
Yeah, no worries.
solving as well.
Thank you. Did anybody else have like any other problems that we want to like tackle before we move forward?
Sorry, I was muted, but I wanted to.
No worries.
It's 3 o'clock, so if you have to leave, I know Safe you mentioned before. If you want to stay, please stay. But if you have to leave, you can.
I might also have to leave. Sorry.
That's all right.
Yeah, I guess I could. Yeah, I guess I could just quickly ask then.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, because anyways, I've got a midterm due at 6, so I think leaving it until 5 might be a bit too stressful.
Yeah, that's totally fine. I absolutely don't mind. Midterms are kind of important.
Yeah, sounds good. And yeah, thanks for running these sessions. Like, it's been really helpful, and you've done a good engaging job, I think, with it as well.
Thank you. I appreciate it, Safe.
Yeah,
Definitely
no
watch the videos
so
and like, and if you have any questions, just like reach out and I can like help you through the stuff if it isn't clear within the presentation.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, I'll check out the videos then for the last 2 hours then.
Okay, fantastic. That's good. That's not too much to watch and not too much missed. Okay, thank you for coming, Safe.
Awesome.
It was nice having you.
Thank you.
I might leave.
Okay, I'm glad to hear it. I'm glad you both enjoyed it, and hopefully Khadija asks all the questions you possibly could ever have. So that's now your new rule. Okay? So thank you for coming, both of you.
Yeah,
Thank
awesome.
you.
Thank you. Okay. Have a good weekend, everyone.
Hey, take care. Have a nice weekend.
Okay.
Okay. Let's see what our next model is. Okay. So we managed to get through the whole sweep here. So we're actually going to move on to something that is like a little more creative, but another special sketching tool that we haven't explored that we're going to cover here, and a new type of extrude and a new feature.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really good that we go over this, and it is actually really fun to make. So like sometimes you're going to be doing a project or like assign a project and it'll just be like an absolute disaster if you don't know the specific features to do it. Alternatively, you can also like take a job in which people think is going to be extremely difficult to make, and then you learn a certain technique which allows you to do it in like 15 seconds and get paid for 15 hours. Okay. So this is one of those experiences here. Okay. So I'm just going to close this model here. I'm not going to save it. I've already got one of these saved, but you should save your stuff. It's good to just kind of like have these models kept away. Like if you ever want to revisit how they're made, because not only like may you want to revisit the video and the slides, it helps if you revisit the actual model itself too, because it'll just simplify and streamline things. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so I am going to go and create a new part, just a regular part, and we're gonna, this time it actually doesn't matter what dimensions we're using, but I'm gonna keep it in IPS just because that's what we've been doing, but there are actually no fixed dimensions for this model that we're about to do. It is very freehand, and then I'm gonna potentially lightly make fun of you at the end of it because of that. But it'll be all in the name of learning. Okay. So the very first thing we're going to do is we're going to be creating a water bottle here, okay? And so realistically, they're going to look a little funky, but that's totally fine. The key is just like the general shape. I want to teach you like the way to make it. So I'm just going to kind of like blaze through this and teach you some stuff along the way.
Do you want me to follow as in go with?
There are no. The short answer is no. I will give you some time to do it because it's just better to watch and learn. There are very few steps going on, and there's not like a whole lot you could possibly miss. But there might be some good like troubleshooting as a result that we get to go over. So I just started a sketch on the front plane. Let me just move my zoom window. Okay, fantastic. So now I am going to go over to my, we'll start with the line tool. So I'm going to create a center line. And so we're going to be using a feature called Revolved Boss/Base. So we've explored sweeps, we've explored normal extrusions, but we have not gone and done a revolve. So a revolve is very unique. So what we're going to be drawing is just a special profile that is then going to be revolved around this axis that I just created. And so that's going to make a lot more sense in a second. So we're actually going to use a new sketch tool that we have not used yet in doing this. So the water bottle is going to look something like this. All of our water bottles are going to look a little bit different. It's very freehand, the tool that I'm about to teach you, and you definitely don't want a dimension with this tool. You can, but it just is, it's an absolute nightmare. It's not meant for that. It's just for like very special, unique geometry. And so that's the spline tool. So under sketches, you're going to see we've been like ignoring this squiggly line up here. So it looks like the line tool except for squiggly. And so these are not arcs. These are literally just squigglies. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to basically sketch. So like we're going to picture if we cut a water bottle in half. It's like I've got a water bottle here. Yeah. I don't know if that's on camera. My thing's not actually big enough.
It is.
Okay, fantastic. So you're just going to like cut it in half, and then you're going to cut it in half again. So like you're going to cut it basically into a corner, and then you're going to look at it.
Yeah.
And just like imagine what that looks like. So it's kind of hard to view, but like we're basically splitting it in half and then splitting it in half again. So when I am looking at it on a specific view, all I'm going to be doing is just drawing one profile of it and the side of that. So I'm just going to kind of get to work here. So the spline tool, the best way to learn the spline tool is by using it.
Okay.
So every time I click, the line that I just created before also moves when I like move it. Yeah. Right? So like it is very, very finicky and meticulous. And so like a very good learning process would be using it. I've already kind of messed it up. So I'm actually just going to delete it because like it wasn't going to look like a water bottle. And honestly, I can't guarantee that it still will. But there is one thing I do want you to do because there's actually, we won't go over the next part. So the next part of this model, I'm just going to like show you quickly what we're not going to be going over. That you can do in your free time, because I'd rather get a little bit further in the material.
Yes.
Is we were basically going to create a thread. And so the thread was going to use the same tool we just learned. But instead of having a stagnant path, we were going to use a Helix tool. And so there is, let me see if I can find a picture of it here. So here, so like I would have typed in at the very top, Helix tool. We would have gone and we would have created a helix that goes down. You know what? I'll still create the helix so that you can learn that. We're just not going to go as far as to actually do the profile, okay? So I will still show you the helix tool. It's not going to be perfect, but in order to do it, there is something I need to do with my model. And so that is to start it off with a straight line. So I'm going to start with a straight line here, just to go down. And so that's kind of where the helix is going to occur. So moving forward, like if I just use straight lines and arcs, I would not get what I want. Instead, I'm going to take a look at my water bottle. Okay, that's what a water bottle looks like. And I'm going to design the absolute worst water bottle you've ever seen because I kind of just want to get through this.
That's
like,
That's not so bad at all. What are you talking about?
Okay, but you'll see. Once it's like all put together, it'll look absolutely horrendous because I can already tell there's like problems with like how wide it is. And okay, but I'm going to just draw lines to kind of complete this.
Yeah.
We're just going to kind of speed through this because this is like something that if we had more free time, we'd kind of like fool around with and have some fun. I just want you to really learn the features of it.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is actually kind of a cool example here. So because my computer's a little slow, but like even if my computer was fast, I could have made this mistake. This point and this point are not aligned. I accidentally like drew a little bit over. And as a result, if I wanted to model, if I was to revolve this around, there would be thin geometry that has 0 thickness, and it just, SolidWorks does not like that at all, like at all. So I'm going to go back to the trim entities, which we discussed earlier. This is another great example of it. So instead of like trying to adjust stuff and make stuff line up, if I cut it, it just forces itself down to the whatever line intersects. Okay. So now we've got this line down here. This all looks fine. So in this situation, we're not going to be dimensioning everything until it is black. But I will show you something with the splines. So the splines, every time you draw a spline, I am actually, instead of ruining my model, I'm going to draw a separate spline. Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
So every time you draw a spline, if I click on this, each segment, each click gets these handlebars. Okay. And so this is like your ability to adjust them further as you design. But as you play around with them, everything else is impacted. So I'm just going to kind of show you what I mean. And so also you got to be very careful. They're very delicate because since you impact everything else, you can cause some problems. So like one example of like where you could use a spline is I was doing a model and I wanted the Coca-Cola logo on it because it was just like an example of like what marketing could look like for like something I was designing. And so I imported a picture of the Coca-Cola model or Coca-Cola logo, and I then traced it with splines. So the text feature wouldn't be able to do it because you're not just going to find Coca-Cola font. So instead I imported a picture, I zoomed in on it, it was on the face. Like if you picture just like a rectangle, just for example, it wasn't in the situation. I put the picture over the rectangle. I started a sketch on the front face of that rectangle that I was looking at that had the picture on it. And then I started tracing it letter by letter with the spline tool. So it can be super useful for things like that you would just never dimension. You're not going to dimension the letter A, right? It's going to just be very relative. And so some of the finer points is like when making certain letters like the O, there is an O. So like making the O, I would have to like play around with this stuff. But look at how drastically things changed and I've barely moved. So these handlebars are like your way to kind of fool around with stuff. You can move the center point that you created and it will do stuff too. But there are so many dimensions that the things can move in that like you really have to like get a feel for the splines if you want to be using them. So like you can extend these handlebars. You can play with the point that's on them. Okay, maybe, yeah, you can. It's very, very difficult, right? So like things move drastically. And so after I draw this, I'm not going to go back and actually change anything. I could, but it's very meticulous. So like I encourage you to play around with them in case you ever want to use them so that you're more prepared for that. But just know that you're going to run into problems. You're going to have to delete stuff. You're going to have to go back because once you move them, it's impossible to get them back without like hitting Control-C. It'll never be exactly the same. Okay, so this is going to look really ugly in a second, but I just want to kind of blaze through this. I don't even think I'm going to have you model this if that's all right. I'd say like if you really want to explore the spline tool, you could do it after, but there's so few steps here and it's so organic that it's more of like if we had more time, we'd kind of go over it. There's a few other things I definitely want to get to and I'll let you kind of model as we go. But I think this one is just going to cause like some weird little problems that aren't going to be helpful to people watching. Okay. So we're going to go to features after I've created this sketch. So you're going to notice that what I did is I created a center line to start. So that's going to be my axis of revolution. So when I go over to Revolved /base, it is going to basically yell at me. Every single time it's going to yell at you. The way that you get it not to yell at you is you draw another line that isn't a center line that goes from here all the way to the bottom. But SolidWorks is smart enough that it'll do it for me. And so what it says here is the sketch is currently open. So it's open because I haven't sealed anything off here. So like in a normal sketch, that would be very problematic. So it says a non-thin revolution feature requires a closed sketch. Would you like your sketch to be closed automatically? And I'm going to just say yes. So it basically just assumes that this is what I'm going for here. And so this is what I was talking about. I didn't really like take into consideration like how wide I was making this. So I've got the world's fattest water bottle, okay? And so maybe it appeals to somebody, but it doesn't appeal to me. And so when doing this feature, in other situations, you might not want to rotate 360 degrees. So like we can make half a water bottle by doing it 180, or like, I don't know, whatever your situation is. It's kind of like hard to say what you're going to run into. I just want you to know that like this feature is for more than just water bottles. And so you could also like, okay, say we had like a big rectangle that was drawn here, and we wanted this to like loop around the corner of the rectangle to make things like softer, but maybe it wasn't a perfect rectangle. It was like some odd shape. And so it's like basically like a child-proof kind of feature. What you could do is you could rotate it so that it goes up to the next surface. So like here, it would rotate around until it hit the other edge of whatever object you're trying to child-proof. So that's an example of like some of the other ways you could use this feature. But here we're just going to use it blind. It's going to fully rotate, and we're going to have it go all 360 degrees, hit the check mark, and we're going to get our water bottle.
Perfect.
Okay? And so water bottles generally are hollow, right? This is currently not hollow. So what we're going to do is we're going to use a whole new feature we haven't used yet. Super easy one, super helpful. So I'm going to go to the top here. The reason I'm not just going to find it, like I can see it, but I can't click it because like Zoom is kind of in the way. So I'm just going to type in shell. It's in your main feature page. I think it's like somewhere around where my mouse is now. I can't really see, but I'm just going to click shell. So shell, we're basically going to like scoop out the material from this using the shell feature. So what you do with the shell feature is you click the face that you want to remove and have everything scooped out of based off of. So we want everything scooped out of based off of this. I don't know what my dimensions are because this isn't dimensioned. So I'm just going to make this really small so it works. This is just my thickness that I'm picking right now. As soon as I hit the check mark, it's going to take a second. Boom, it completely is hollowed out and it has that thickness of that I just set.
Yeah, fair.
And so now it's more like a water bottle. Okay,
Did it
so
hollow out all the way down, or did it hollow out only to the top?
So it hollowed out everything in there, but it didn't kick out this face because I didn't select that face there. So it only kicks out the face that you select. So everything else is completely solid, and it's like a water bottle, only the top is open, but everything is hollow inside.
But it's like a cylinder. What if I wanted the curvy shaped hollow too?
It is completely hollow. I'll show you. So there is something I haven't shown you in SolidWorks yet, so that's a really good question. So this is a very visual thing. This doesn't actually change your model. So if you go to the top bar here, all these things are very visual. This right here is a section view. So if we take a cross section of this, you could see that it traced it out exactly. And so if I go and I click on cross section again, it'll toggle it off. You can also, I'll just like go through cross sections really quick because this is really useful to like figure out what's going on inside your model, you know, and like to answer the question you just posed perfectly. So like you can change the plane that you're kind of doing it. This is completely visual. So like your model actually isn't being changed permanently. So like you can like inspect specific parts of it, or like say you needed to, exactly. So like say you needed to draw something on the inside and you couldn't see the inside. This is another good way to do it. So like you could temporarily open it up. I can change the color and like fool around with a bunch of other things, but like it's very straightforward. You're not going to ruin your model by doing this. Just know that you can toggle it off just by clicking it again. Okay. So I'm going to show you one more sketch tool and the Helix tool. That's why the Helix tool is kind of worth it, mostly for the sketch tool I'm going to show. So we don't know what the dimensions of this circle is on the top, but I do. Okay. So I should have made this a little thicker. I didn't because I didn't know what we were really dealing. I'm just trying to click this face right here. Give me a second.
I wonder why it does that. Because we made it fine, right? Like we didn't.
Yeah, no. We didn't do anything wrong. It just
It's like a weird offset.
it's just getting confused at what I'm trying to select. Okay, to resolve this, I'm just gonna make it thicker.
Okay.
So I'm just gonna go back to shell, edit feature. Oops, I almost made it a foot. I'm gonna go 0.1 inches. And let's see if this is even possible. It might be too thick. Okay, no, it is possible. See, now it's easy to select, right? It just was too small. And also like my computer's slow, so I can't like select things that are very precise because it's not following me at the same rate that it kind of looks like it is. Because there's a lot of stuff going on in the background in SolidWorks. Okay. So we're going to start a sketch on this face. So I should have stayed in here. So I'm going to just right click, sketch. Okay. So now I'm going to go normal too, because I want to face it.
Yeah.
Right, so that's super useful. So we can face it. This is that edge right there. So it's going to make sense why we're doing this in a second. So I just want to show you something called convert entities. So because we don't know what this dimension is, there are some like other ways you could do this, and it would be just as easy, but you'll come into situations where this will be extremely useful. So convert entities basically takes anything like within your model and sketches it on the plane that you have. So like, for example, say like for some reason I needed like this big outer circle here. Like, I don't know why I would need it, but if I click on it and I hit the check mark, Convert Entities draws that circle perfectly and converts it, right? So that like, it is used for very special scenarios where usually like it'll be for something more complicated that you basically want to copy and paste in some sense. So like we want to redraw this outer edge circle right here.
Yeah.
But I don't want to go through the process of redrawing it, even though it is very easy. So I'm going to click Convert Entities, save some time. Okay, I'm just trying to get the outer edge. I got the outer edge.
Yeah.
I'm going to hit the check mark. Now if I move, you're going to see that it has drawn that.
Yeah.
Right? And it's perfectly defined because that's like the dimension and everything for it. So now that I go normal 2, and we've like converted that entity, we can now do the helix that I was talking about. And so the helix is a feature. So I'm just going to back out. We just needed that as a reference geometry for the helix. We might need to create an axis as well.
Wait, pause. So
Yes.
2 questions. One, where did you click to get this convert?
Okay, we'll go back into the sketch. Convert Entities is just like one of your sketch tools. It's beside the trim right here.
Okay.
Convert Entities. Okay.
Second question.
Yep, keep going.
Was how did you make it like a guide? You mentioned that you only needed to, like, is it like a solid sketch? Like it's part of the top, or did you just like you made a lid, right?
So yes and yes. Okay, so what I did is I started a sketch on the top face, right?
Yeah.
So just like how we were creating sketches before on like the top plane or on a face or wherever, that is all that I did. I created a sketch. And so this isn't going to be a lid, but it is the same kind of thing. So I just drew it and I'm not making anything out of it. I just need that drawn. And I'll show you why I need that drawn in a second, okay?
Sounds good.
Okay, so I'm just gonna back out. That sketch is gonna stay there, right? And so this is like gonna be a helpful reference. So I wanna show you one more thing we haven't gone over. So we're gonna go over to reference geometry. So earlier on, we made a new plane, right, on our first day. And so another thing that you can make is an axis. And so axes are really good for like revolving stuff. And so there are ways that we could do this without an axis, but I just want to show this to you anyway. So I'm going to click front plane and I'm going to click the right plane. The axis is going to be placed at the intersection of the two, okay? And so you can revolve stuff and pattern stuff around an axis. If we have enough time, I'm going to show you some more really cool tools without a specific model, because it just would be worth knowing. I don't know if my computer will be able to handle them, but I think it'll be really good for you both and anybody who's watching, because I don't normally teach this. Okay, so we've got the axis now. I'm going to type in helix. So there is a helix and spiral tool. And so the helix and spiral tool is going to want, okay, my axis is already selected. I don't really want that, but it's going to want that sketch that I had just created before. And so what it's going to do is it's going to take that circle I just drew and it's going to stretch it out into a helix, right? And so a helix is really good because if you look at the thread, you know, on a water bottle, you know, that is a helix itself. And so that is how we would normally create that helix. And so this would be the path that we would then use that feature we just learned before, which is a swept boss / base, and we would then move that pattern around it to create the thread, okay? So you can play around with a bunch of stuff here. I don't have an exact dimension because like the stuff, as I mentioned, isn't even dimensioned for this. So you basically like play around with different values that you have. So you can make it so that there's a different pitch, so like it increases as it goes and it's not as tight. But I want this to be reversed in direction because I want it to go downwards. I can increase the number of revolutions that it has. And so this is just completely visual. So like just play around with the numbers that it gives you here. And then you can basically just hit the check mark and it'll create a sketch, which is a helix, right? And so then we could use this path as like an extruded or a swept boss / base. And so I do have like the steps here of exactly how to do that. It's just not worth us doing it because it takes a little bit of time and it's going to only be me doing it. And so I think it's best that like if you really wanted to do it, just like look at the slides. It's the same kind of thing. You draw a circular face, you do a Pierce relationship, and you just like draw that on like the front plane or the right plane, and then you use the swept boss / base, and it'll do the rest of the work. Okay.
Question. So when you made the helix, did it get rid of the circle, or is the circle still there?
So that's a good question. I want to know. Okay. So this is what happened. So if you go to the left, you see how we have this drop-down menu here? before clicking it, I can guarantee it's going to have both the circle in there, and actually it'll probably just have the circle in here. Yeah, so it's got sketch 2 under it. So it basically becomes a child to this. Like this is like a parent to this thing here. So it kind of like hides underneath because SolidWorks realizes that we probably only drew this to be used by this. You could still use it for other things, or you could just redraw it again. Because like when we have that drop-down menu, which is up here on the screen, you could still go all the way down and find the sketch if you needed to select it for some sort of purpose. Actually, I will just show you that right now. Why not? So if we go to extruded boss/base, like say we wanted to create like a lid like we were mentioning earlier, right? I could just click on that by going through the drop-down menus. I went through the drop-down menus to below helix/spiral to the sketch. If I hit the check mark, you see it sealed it off.
Yeah.
So you were still able to reuse it without having to draw it again.
Okay.
And so it actually has a different icon than a normal sketch does, and it's because you're borrowing it from this child, which is really interesting. I haven't seen that before, so just want to throw that out there. So I am going to use this rollback, which I had mentioned earlier, and I'm just going to move it above. It suppresses all the features that are below it, so it doesn't delete them, it suppresses them. So if I wanted to suppress this without rolling back, I could right click and I could either roll back or I could suppress. If I suppress, it just hides it, but it also removes it from the feature. So it's not just visually hidden. So if I go unsuppress, it comes back. You can also hide things only visually. Hiding is only visual, unlike suppress, which actually changes stuff in your model. So I'm going to just show it, and we're back to where we were before. Okay?
I have a question. When
Go
you
for it.
when you suppress something, can you at that point draw stuff and it'll just like add to your chain and move the suppressed stuff further down the line? Does that make sense? In your history of model?
Are
Like,
you
let's say
okay?
you're at this blue line now and you
Yes,
want
yes.
to make a new sketch.
Okay.
And you do that. Does it push everything below it further down?
Yep. You're spot on. That's exactly what happens. So anything below it will stay hidden. Everything above will just like keep going as normal. And like maybe later on I might want to bring this back, but you're right. It's not going to just keep suppressing everything I just did by putting it below. It will put it above and keep pushing other stuff down. So good point.
What if you suppressed like a bunch of different things and you want to unsuppress something that's lower in the order?
It's a good question. So like there is an element of order within SolidWorks. You're 100% right. Let me see. SolidWorks actually added this, I believe, one of these recent years. So let's see if we can do this. Okay, so like because stuff comes in a very specific order. Okay, I'm trying to remember what. Give me a second. Let me just play around with a couple buttons. So there was a really good visual tool. Maybe I can't do it for that. Okay, but yes, you can reorder stuff, and like with suppressing, you can also reorder stuff. So like say I wanted to do my helix earlier on, it can only go back so far before it runs out of something that it was dependent on, if that makes sense. So like it was dependent on when I drew the sketch for the helix, it was dependent on having this face. So I couldn't go all the way back and have it as the very first thing because it was dependent on that. But if I just left click and I drag, I could move it to, can I move it before the axis? I can actually move it before the axis, which is kind of interesting. We might not have actually needed the axis. Yeah, I don't think we actually need the axis, which is kind of cool, but it does make sense. But no, it doesn't matter. So like as long as something isn't like a child of the other or dependent on it. And so in this scenario, I don't think what I was trying to show you is like the best example here because we don't really have a lot of things that are dependent. Maybe later on, if it comes back up again in a better model, I will explain this better. But you can reorder stuff, but to a certain extent. Like I can't bring this revolve further down. You see how I get that black like do not do sign? That's because everything below it is dependent on this. So like as a result, nothing below it would make sense happening above it. So this is very much like a timeline of things that occur. And like as we go back, it has to make sense, right? So like the further I go back, if I go back to having the revolve has to come before the shell because what would you be shelling if there was no revolve? So I can't bring this above. Like if I try to bring this above, it just doesn't happen, right? So there are limitations on that front. And sometimes you do need to change the sequence of things. So it's good to know that kind of stuff. So I appreciate it being brought up because we did not really discuss that.
Thank you.
Yeah, no worries. I'm just trying to see. There's something else that I can show you. I know we won't go over that right now. Okay, so that's all we're going to cover for this specific part, and we're going to move on to the next one just so we can cover as many things as we can. Then, like, if people are going through the video, they can just take it at whatever pace they want. But I do want certain things to still be modeled by you, just to make sure that you kind of get a feel for what we're doing. Okay, so I'm not actually going to go into one of the parts that's on the slide yet, because something we discussed inspired me to like show you something different that I don't normally teach. So we're going to go through that instead really quickly, and I hope that's all right. So you won't be able to follow this on the slides, but it will be a good way to learn some other things that we wouldn't normally touch otherwise.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Yeah, so I'm just not going to save this because I don't really need it, but I encourage you to save anything you make. Okay, I'm going to go new part. I'm going to go to the top plane. I'm going to create a sketch. So it automatically brings me to the top plane. And so I'm just going to be creating a rectangle here. So this part doesn't.
Or do you want me to...
No. Just watch.
Okay.
If that's all right.
Yeah. That's fine.
I'm not setting specific dimensions here. I'm literally just doing things kind of relative here. So it would be a little bit hard to follow. Unfortunately, I've switched over to inches, and like realistically, I should be able to use inches. I just don't like the big numbers. It just kind of frustrates me.
Yeah, that's fine.
I mean, with millimeters. I just like to keep stuff simple. Like I can just say 9. It doesn't really matter, right? I could say 5. Otherwise, I'm like going crazy with my geometry and I have to like overthink it. Realistically, you're going to be using like millimeters and stuff like that in your models. Like whatever you're working with, just like select down here to simplify yourself. But like just like for like freehanding stuff, like things that don't really matter, I find it's just easier to do it in inches, and that's kind of what we're doing right now. So I'm just going to go features, extrude boss / base. So we're going to actually be pushing the limits of my computer a bit here, so I don't really know what's going to happen. Yeah, we'll just extrude that 2 inches. I just dragged it so I can have a visual gauge of what that would look like, because this is like something very visual. Okay, so now we're going to start another sketch on the top, and I'm going to show you 2 different ways to do what I want to show you here.
Yes.
Okay, so we're going to start by drawing a circle. And so what we're, okay, there we go. Okay, so what we're basically trying to do is I want to cut out a bunch of circles here, and I want the circles to have a specific like pattern to them. I'm going to show you 2 ways to do this. One that's a little simpler, and then like, okay, I guess 2 ways isn't the explanation I want, or I was trying to say. I'm going to show you 2 different cool things you can do based off of patterning, and then we can go from there. So like, these numbers aren't going to line up perfectly. The key is just I want you to know that you can do this, okay? And so depending on the application of what you're doing, it'll make a lot more sense. So let's just go 0.5, perfect. So what I want to do is I want these circles to go down this way, but I don't want to redraw the circles every single time, right? Like I don't want to draw a circle here and space it, and then draw another circle identical. I want to pattern it. So if I go into my sketch tools here, I might have to, okay, no, this is working. It's just my thing's a little bit in the way. Okay, so I'm gonna go to linear sketch pattern. So here there's a few different tools. Can somebody read off what the one below, I just keep getting, let me see if I can move this, sorry. I can move it, okay, fantastic. It's just the zoom thing. Okay, fantastic. I can see it. Never mind. Doesn't matter. Okay, so like I want you to kind of know both of these here because I don't normally teach these because there's just so much in SolidWorks that like it could just keep going. But I think these could be useful to you. Mirror entities we haven't used. So like mirror entities, basically what that means is if I was to draw a center line, right? I just kind of whip through things quickly just so that you can kind of like see a few things. So like I don't expect like somebody who's watching this to necessarily follow each of these things or like do each of these things. I think it's just important sometimes to know that certain things are there. So I'm gonna go mirror entities. I'm gonna click on this. I'm gonna mirror it about the center line I just created. And so that's one way that I could get something to appear on the other side. Oh, sorry, I need to specifically select mirror about. Okay, so you see like this is a preview of what happened. And so I drew that circle once, right? And I wanna draw it all the way down, so that's not gonna cut it. I just wanted to show that you could mirror.
Yeah.
But what I do wanna do is I wanna create a pattern. So if you click the drop-down menu, there's 2 types of patterns, and I'm going to show you both of them. There's linear sketch pattern and circular sketch pattern. So I'm going to go to linear sketch pattern. So if I select the circle, you see it's already trying to draw a second circle.
Yeah.
And so I can set the spacing. We're going to go every inch I want one drawn. And so that's from center to center of the circle. But I don't only want one drawn. I want that many drawn, 9. Okay, so you can just like super easily do these things. But sometimes like you're doing something a little more complicated. And so you can also change the angle. Okay, so you can only go upwards and around. So like I could do 170. Okay, I need a bigger number. Let's do 300. Okay, so like maybe you need that, right? So this is just like, I'm just showing this for the sake of doing this, that you can like have like a diagonal pattern based off of that and like doing an angle. And so what I'm actually just going to do is I'm going to change that back to 0 because I liked how it was initially. And then I'm going to actually pattern one more time after this. So you can actually do a direction 2, which is the y-axis here. And so that's actually what I want. Let me see if it'll let me do it here if I have to make a second. So instead of just having 1, beautiful, 2, so I can then reverse the direction, which is this icon right here. Anytime you see this, these 2 arrows, that is going to be, so you, like if you're looking for the words reverse direction, a lot of the time you won't find them. But if you go directly beside like what is in charge of your directioning, you'll notice that this is probably a button. And if you hover over it, it'll say reverse direction. So I'm going to then increase this to 1 inch as well. So this is where my computer's about to get super slow and I don't know if it's going to be possible, but I'm going to show you anyway. Okay, so like this is how you could have a bunch of circles created extremely quickly. If you wanted to draw and dimension all of these, it would take you a very long time. Instead, we just like did that instantaneously. And then we could go and say we wanted to like Swiss cheese this. So if I go to extruded cut, this is where my computer is going to totally die. Let's see if it does it. If this does it, that's actually incredible. Okay. Wow, that's actually superb.
That's so fantastic. Oh my God, I love it.
Right? And so we can perfectly cut through all of these. And so I'm going to show you another way to do this.
Oh my God, that's like a pipette tip holder.
Yeah. Hey, you're getting creative already. Exactly. Okay, so now if I go and I sketch on this face again, this time I'm only going to draw the first circle. So say we've created something. Oftentimes this is going to be for stuff that is more complex. That we're going to use the one that I'm about to show you. But nonetheless, it works for what we're doing here. And so I might as well show it to you in this application. And then you can figure out what other applications you could use it in. Okay, so we dimensioned the very same circle that we did before. This time, okay, actually I'm going to show you circular first, and then okay, no, I'll do this. This is more related to what we just did. I'm basically going to recreate what we just did in a different way. So I'm going to go extruded cut. So instead of patterning it first, I'm doing the cut first. And so this can be really useful at times in which you're doing something super complicated and it's like beyond just doing a sketch, which is kind of like hard to explain, but you'll run into the situation where it's like, damn, I wish I could pattern this, but I can't because it's a whole feature and I'm not in a sketch anymore. So you can still do that. So you go over to linear pattern this time under the features. So before it was linear sketch pattern, which was here, but because we're in features now, we just go to linear pattern. So right here, linear pattern, I click on it, and so it'll take the whole feature this time, and it'll do exactly what we did before. So if I set the 1 inch again, and I start to increase the number, oh, I didn't select the circle. It just appears to be selected. Oh no, I didn't select the direction, my bad. Okay, so this time it doesn't come with a default direction because you can like pattern stuff this way too, like in the other axis, so it specifically wants you to select something. And so sometimes that's when you're going to need to create an axis like we just did before, so that you can like use the axis as a direction. But here we had an edge that was going the same way. So I just selected the edge and then we were able to pattern it that way. If I select the second direction, I can pick this edge down here and it'll know that I want to go downwards. I'm going to add 1 inch here. We're going to Swiss cheese it again, wrong direction. So I'm going to flip the direction by clicking that icon and boom. I'm just going to increase this, and we get exactly what we had before.
Very nice.
Right?
Great.
2 different ways. So either patterning within the sketch or patterning whole features. And so a whole feature could look like a lot of things. You know what? Let's have some fun. Okay? So I'm going to show you another linear pattern. I'm just trying to get creative here. I've got something though. Okay. So like, just bear with me. Some of the stuff that I'm doing is not going to necessarily make sense, because it is just like a lot of reference geometry stuff, but I've kind of got a vision for like what I want us to pattern. So you can kind of see like the extent of what you could be doing here.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna roll this back one more time.
Pause. Before you roll back. Or actually it's fine. So when you extruded down there,
Yep.
did you remind me again, do you cut like the hole all the way through, or is the bottom?
So I cut all the way through here because that was just like what default happened, which was 2 inches, and this is 2 inches thick. But like if I wanted to make sure that it was cut through, I could have clicked through all here. But yes, in this situation, it was cut all the way through. Doesn't have to be. Whatever
What if I
cut you
wanted,
made.
like a really thin plate at the bottom? Like I didn't want holes.
It's totally done that.
We've
like-
done that before, right? We've just extruded to a certain like length.
Yep. So like either through blind, so here it's 2 inches. Say we only wanted to go 0.5 deep, right?
Yeah.
Then this is what it would look like, and it would only pattern that,
Yeah.
right? Or like whatever depth that you want to give it, you can give it, right? So this doesn't go all the way through, it only goes up to here, and each of the holes does that.
Yeah. Go ahead. Now it's a weld plate.
Beautiful.
Sorry, you can go now.
No, that was fantastic. Okay, so I'm gonna roll it back, and so I'm just gonna kind of show you like the extent that you can like extrude stuff, and I'm gonna teach you a whole new feature that I also wasn't planning on teaching because you don't use this one as often, but like maybe you'll find a way to use it. So I'm gonna create another plane. So I don't have enough planes to really do what I'm trying to do here. So if you remember from like the first week, we went to plane under reference geometry. I'm gonna click the top face, and so this time I'm actually gonna dimension it. So I want it to be 5 inches. No, we're gonna make it 3 inches above. Okay, and so that's because we're gonna draw something on the top and on the bottom, and we're gonna do something really cool. Okay, so it's gonna look really weird. This is not something you'd ever create in real life. It's not inspired by anything I've ever seen in real life. And so as a result, you're gonna just be like, what even is this object? It's just object, okay? So we're gonna start on this face. I'm gonna go sketch. I'm gonna go normal 2. And so we can use some weird shapes for this, so that's actually really cool. Okay, I'm not even gonna dimension this. Okay, I will dimension this. I was not telling the truth. Okay, so I'm gonna go smart dimension. We're gonna go 0.5. Okay, yeah, this is gonna look really weird, but it's gonna be really cool because you haven't seen this done before.
Yeah, honeycomb.
Not even. It's beyond honeycomb. Yeah, honeycomb is like too kind for what is about to be created. Okay, oops. Yeah, so I'm just throwing some dimensions on it. This is just for a relative thing. And so that is sketched on the bottom, okay? And so I'm just gonna leave that sketch. We're just gonna leave it like that. And so I'm gonna then go to the top plane. I'm gonna sketch on the top plane. And so I'm gonna sketch something, sketch a circle. I think it should work. And so we're gonna position the circle over here. And you're gonna see like, I'm just kind of showing you the extent of this feature. I'm gonna just dimension it 1 inch, give it a size 0.75, why not? Okay, so it's a little bit bigger than our hexagon that we just created. And so that's on the top plane, this is on the bottom plane. I see what the issue is. I'm gonna give it 1 more dimension. Wait, let me see, is that what yeah, okay. So I want it to be horizontal to the origin.
Yeah.
Can't really.
Oh, is that why it's blue? Because it's not enough dimensioned?
That's exactly why. Okay, because I'm not facing it dead on, and it's giving me a hard time.
There it is.
So I'm just gonna make it so it's horizontal, and there it's fully dimensioned. Okay. And so these two things are not lined up, right? This one's at the bottom and this one's like weird at the top over here, okay? And so now we're going to use a very unique feature. And so there are applications for this, otherwise it wouldn't be in SolidWorks. It's called lofted boss/base. So it's an even more unique type of extrusion you would have no other way of doing, okay? So I'm gonna click on lofted boss/base. And so it takes 2 profiles. and a guided curve. Can we do it without the curve? I think we can. Let's see. Okay, so we're gonna click this face. If we can't do it without a curve, I'll create a curve. We can. So we just took the hexagon and turned it into a circle, okay? And so, yeah. So maybe this is like a coat rack, I don't know, right? So like you can basically draw two shapes, any shape pretty well, that are on completely different planes and then connect them with this feature. If I used a guiding curve, which would be like I drew a curve that like looped up in a specific way, it would follow that loop as well. It's like, say we didn't want it straight out like this, we wanted it to go up and around like this, the feature would follow that path that we created, kind of like how we made a path before. So it would be a guided curve. So we didn't make a curve this time, but you totally could, like, to make a specific path for it to look even more complicated, okay? So I'm just gonna hit the check mark. All it takes is two faces and an optional guided curve, okay? And so now if we analyze this, right, like it went from this hexagon to this circle. And so now we could pattern this whole thing that we just created, right? So now this is no longer something we could have just done in a sketch. So say we wanted multiple of these to be our coat rack, right? So I go and I click this. I'm gonna need to click the feature. Oh, here it is, features to pattern. So the feature that I want to pattern is this guy here. And just like that, you know, we can play around with the spacing and like the number that we want to create. I hit the check mark. And we basically just like created some sort of coat rack, like a very obscure one, but like.
Oh no, they're like pegs.
They are like pegs.
Like,
exactly. So like, I just wanted to show that this is something you can do, right? And this is something you can pattern to. So like, it could be a full feature that you've created that you're patterning. It can even be like a full body, like I think a set of multiple features that you can pattern, right? So like, we could then have gone and made like something else on top of this and patterned all of that. Like maybe we wanted like a little hook at the end. We could have made the hook after, right? And then patterned all of those, right? So it doesn't just have to be one extrusion. It can be multiple different things that are going on, all patterned at once to make like a really complex model, okay? So I just wanted to show that. I'm gonna show one more thing before we go forward. And that's going to be the circular patterns. So this is a linear pattern, right? Like it is all pushed down a line. I'm going to wind this back to just our base rectangle. It's like there's a lot of crazy stuff going on below. And I'm going to go edit sketch. And so you can do this both in the sketch and in the feature. So just like linear sketch pattern and linear pattern, you can do it as a sketch or you can do it as like a 3D object. So the circular pattern follows the same pattern, right? So I will only show it to you in the sketch, but you could do it in both the sketch and in the feature level. So either for the feature level, you go, sorry, my thing's in the way again. Let me move it. Okay. So like if you wanted to do it again, you just would go to linear pattern, but you click the drop down menu and it would give you circular pattern. Okay. But here we're working in the sketch. So actually, no, I didn't want to do it here. I will do it on top of this. My bad. Okay. So sketch, normal 2. And so now we're going to do just a circle here. Okay. Because I want a circle in the center. I believe I need to draw, okay, we're actually going to combine both linear and circular sketch patterns here. So I'm going to smart dimension this.
He's going to go linear this way and circular this way.
Exactly, right? So if we start, right, we're familiar with the linear now. So I click on it. I'm just going to make a okay, oops. So I'll create 3. I don't know, see, like these might be too tall, so I'll just kind of force it to work.
Change the direction of the linear so it's vertical and then go.
You're right. I could have checked it that way. That would have been a really good idea. But that's fine. It'll definitely work here.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go to linear sketch pattern. So just like in the normal one, it would be a drop-down menu here. It's also a drop-down menu in the sketch here. Yeah. So I click this circular sketch pattern. And so it's going to want a point that it's going to rotate around. So that's going to be the center point here. Okay. And then or does it want the circles? Okay, it wants the circles. It already knows that it's going around the center. Oh, sorry. Okay, so at the very top here, it wants the point. So I did it good by selecting the point. And then here it asks what you want to pattern around that point. And so now we got our preview. We can then like change the angle of like what we're trying to kind of create, like with our pattern. I'm just gonna bring that back to 360. We don't have to have them as equal spacing. Like there's a lot of stuff we can fool around with. Like certain ones could be patterned a little bit different. And so like we can increase the number for as many as it allows us to fit.
Yeah.
The thing that is going to limit us is overlap.
Okay.
And so as a result, if you were to make this in a real world application, you would probably do each of these individually. You would first pattern this one to fit as many as you could. Then you would pattern the next one because they are limited, right? Like you see the space increases each time we add one, right? Like if I added another circle after, it would be a problem, right? And so like if I increase the number of circles here, we start to get overlap. And overlap you will not be able to work with. It'll just ruin your model, right? You need some sort of thickness there in order for it to be a whole. Otherwise, it's just going to be like cutting through all of each other, and it's just going to be very confusing for SolidWorks.
Okay, sorry. Pause.
Yeah, go ahead.
Edge case. So what if it's like directly coincident, tangent, the circle?
Okay, so then we do run into a zero geometry pattern. Or like a zero geometry thickness error that we're going to get. And so that's a really good question. I don't think that there is a workaround that SolidWorks has now that would allow you to do that. But if the two are like perfectly touching each other and intersecting, when you cut through, I think it's going to try to give zero geometry to that intersection area, and it's going to give you an error.
Yeah.
Right? That's what I'm thinking at least, right? I'm pretty sure, like at least in the past, it 100% did that. You could try it and like tell me if that's different in SolidWorks 20, because they are always like trying to make things a little bit more friendly. But that, to my understanding, you would not be able to, based off of what I've experienced in the past. But excellent question. So now we can just go. Yeah. Do you have any more questions?
Yeah, I'm not sure if you just answered it or not. I missed the last point. But is there any way, because you were saying like there's a limitation on the vertical because it's longer than it is wide. Is there any way to say like keep going as long as you can have full circles until this edge and like stop at this edge?
Let's see. That's a fantastic question. Let me see if I can get, guys, like SolidWorks makes it very difficult to get back into the patterning. It's like I want to click on the icon so it lets me back in there. I need to click the parent. Ooh, I think this is what I gotta click. No. Sorry, I haven't used the circular one in this SolidWorks yet. So I'm just trying to figure out how to open up that menu we had before. It's like in the past, you would like just like double click on either one of these icons, which is the relation that it displayed, so that it knew you were asking for that. But now it's just giving me dimensions. Okay, I do want to figure that out. So I'm actually just going to delete this. We're going to check.
All right.
Just yes to all. Okay. Okay, I think I have an idea why it was giving me problems. Okay, doesn't matter. So we're, my computer's slowing down. Okay, here we go.
Yeah.
Circle, fantastic. So I'm just gonna dimension it really quick.
Yeah, it looks a little big right now.
0.25. I'm just gonna make it a little smaller. Okay, linear sketch pattern. 0.5. Okay, we're gonna try it with this. Okay, now we're gonna go back to the circular. Okay, we've got the point. I'm gonna select the entities now that we're gonna rotate with. Okay, let's see. So I'm gonna start by increasing the base number to the maximum that I could go to. So I don't think that there's any way that you could automatically just say do the maximum.
Okay, good to know.
Ooh, okay. I do remember this. I haven't used this in years, like the specific part down here, but I will show that to you too. So one way that we could do it in which things would get extremely messy is using instances to skip. So what this does is if I, okay, it's not doing what I thought it would do. What? I don't know why it's giving me a pencil tool.
Oh, I think it's because like you have to select one and then it'll stop rotating that one. It's like you
Yeah,
click that circle and it got rid of all of the ones that
it did, but I think I clicked it out of here. Like it forced it out of the entities to pattern here. It didn't add anything to instances to skip.
yeah.
Instances to skip makes me think that I just don't understand why it's giving me a pencil. The pencil
I think
usually
it's
means I have to.
usually means.
Usually it means like I have to draw something, right? Like, and so it's not letting me. I like what I picture it to mean, and what I believe it means is like I can skip a specific one of these circles, right? But it is not letting me select any of them, and I don't know if that's because of me and like my computer, or because I'm actually just not using it right. But here we're gonna explore a little bit further. So if we turn off equal spacing, let's see. You're not able to. Dimension radius, dimension angular spacing. Okay, so I think the conclusion is the sketch one doesn't have as many features and things that you can access as the normal circular one. So I don't think that you are able to, within the sketch, to alter each of them without going through them individually, right? So like I'm almost 100% sure in the actual sketch, or in the feature one, which I've used a lot more, is you can select how much you want to pattern each circle individually. Like you can make it so that they're offset from themselves. Instead of patterning them all individually, you could do it all under one feature. In this situation, you cannot do that. Dimension, yeah, it's not like giving me, okay, wait, let's see what this is here first, but I think this is, yeah, it's just the centers. Okay, no, we don't have the freedom here to really be able to, like we can change the angle and stuff like that, but no matter what, as we expand outwards, we're getting more and more problems, and there is no additional menu here that allows us to change that. So it was a really good question, and I was hoping we could do it, but you can't do it at least within the sketch one. Like, even when I turned off equal spacing, it wasn't like there was a whole new menu here, which I was really hoping would be the case. So fantastic question. Unfortunately, you can't do that within the sketch, but you can do that within the feature from what I remember. But I don't really want to do that right now because I kind of want to hit something else, but I hope that at least like is all right.
Yeah, no,
So like,
thank you.
it's a fantastic question though. Okay, excellent. So I showed you the circular pattern, right? So at least we've seen it. We kind of know what's there. So I'm just going to leave this model now, and we're going to move on to another model, okay? I just kind of wanted everybody to at least know these things are here because they're extremely valuable for situations where you need to use them. The last thing you want is to be drawing and dimensioning each of these circles by hand, or like whatever object that we're creating. So I hope that was at least helpful.
Yeah.
So I'm going to just close this. I'm not going to save it. If you decide to follow along or like are fooling around with it too, you might as well save your model. But okay, so now we're going to design another part. This is just specifically to show you some more tools that you can use. And then I'm going to go through and show you like some other things SolidWorks has to offer, but there's not going to be a specific model to go along with it. So this is one that I actually want you to model just for some practice. So we're going to start by doing a sketch on the top plane with dimensions of 5 inches and 3 inches. So I'm going to go back to SolidWorks, go File, New, Part.
Plain new sketch.
Yep, spot on. Start with the rectangle tool. I'm going to do a center rectangle because we know it's based off of the origin. Hit Escape, Smart Dimension. Oh no, I'm still in millimeters. So what I'm going to do here actually, instead of backing out right away, I'm going to type in 5, and then I'm going to type in IN beside it, just so it knows that I'm talking about 5 inches. And so it'll convert it for me, which is really nice, but I don't want to have to type in IN after each one. So this is 3 inches. So, but I do want to finish this sketch. So I'm just going to go and I'm going to switch it now to IPS. I'm going to go Edit Sketch, go back in here, and look, it's still 5 and 3. So it definitely was done the right way. Okay, and so now I'm going to extrude it for a specific thickness. The thickness is going to be 1 inch. Okay, it is now 1 inch thick. Okay, and so the thickness, like the actual geometry doesn't matter that much for this model. So like don't be like extremely frustrated like over that. The key is what I'm kind of trying to teach you. So like even if you don't model this, that is totally fine. But like I do want you to fool around with this feature that we're going to get to. And so in order to do that, like we're going to have to get there. So actually we do use the mirror entities in the sketch again here. I wasn't sure if we were going to use that. So I might as well just go over it one more time. So I'm going to create a sketch on the top face.
Pause for a second. So
Yep.
to do the create sketch on top face, I have to get into sketch, and then how do I select the top face to sketch on?
Okay, so I wouldn't start by sketching, like clicking sketch. So what I would do is I'd click on the face that I want to sketch on with left click, and then I right click on it to get the menu to open up, so it knows that everything I'm talking about here is in relation to the face that is currently blue. And so I'm going to just click sketch.
Okay, wait, but I'm still in Boss Extrude. How do I get out of it?
Have you finished your Boss Extrude? Like, have you hit the check mark?
Yes.
Okay.
When I hover over the face to select it, it still says like there's still a square beside my cursor that says Boss Extrude.
That's totally fine. Let me see. I'm pretty sure mine will say the same thing.
Yeah, yours is
that's totally fine. Yeah, don't worry about that.
All right, perfect. And then you got to, and then
Okay, beautiful.
Did we dimension this yet, or?
Yeah, we did. It was 5, 3, and 1.
Yeah,
Okay,
5
so
inches, 3 inches. Yeah, no worries. Sorry, I was going really fast. But I do have it on the slides as well. If anybody like following along is kind of like behind. Okay. Also, like I don't know if I showed it today to like people who are watching. It is the same link as the other week. So like if they are completely lost, maybe send this out to them. This specific link here, I'm not going to change it. I'm going to leave it so that it's like accessible because everything up to what we're about to finish is like completely step by step, except for the stuff that I kind of just freehanded to show, right? But enough to like learn a substantial amount, especially with the video. Okay. So we're going to go into the sketch on here and we're going to do something kind of different. So there is a sketch tool that we haven't used yet, and that is the point. So points are really useful for just like relations. So I'm going to draw 4 points.
Random?
Yeah, it doesn't exactly matter. We're going to dimension them and like make it so that they're not random. So if they aren't, you just kind of want them around the corners of each of these. Because basically what's going to happen is we're going to use them to then place we're going to then drill a hole at each of these points. And so it's kind of like a different way of going about kind of how we've been making holes. Okay. So I've got dimensions. So each of them are going to be 0.75 of an inch from their corresponding sides. So I'm going to go here. I'm going to go 0.75. I'm actually going to show you.
Do I have to hit control in order to select the side and the circle, or can I just click it without control?
Without control. You don't need control. For smart dimension, because it's expecting multiple things to be clicked, you won't need it. So I'm going to go 0.75. So I'm actually going to take a step backwards. You can either do it the exact way that I'm doing it, or you cannot. So I'm going to delete these because I want to show off the mirror tool a little bit. So I've dimensioned 1 to exactly where I want it. I'm just going to make sure. Yep. Spot on. So I'm just going to, you can move the dimensions after, by the way, just to make it a little bit cleaner, because that is much more friendly to look at than like something down here. It's just like kind of weird. So I'm just going to move that out to the outside here. And so I'm just clicking once with my left click, and I'm just dragging. Okay. So I'm now going to create 2 center lines. I'm going to create one center line that is horizontal. And so these are going to be references for my mirrors. Oops. I'm going to create another center line, which is vertical, that goes through the origin. Okay. And now I'm going to mirror. So I'm going to go to mirror entities. The entity to mirror is this dot, this point. I want to mirror it about here. See if I can do both. Okay, no, I can do one at a time. So I'm going to mirror this first. So now I've got this point. It's going to be automatically have the same dimensions because this is symmetrical and be in the right position. And so then I'm going to mirror one more time. But this time I'm going to mirror both of these. And I'm going to mirror about this line. And so everything should be 0.75 by default now. instead of me going through and dimensioning each of them, this is like one way you could go about doing it.
Could you remind me how to click something and delete it? Because for some reason it won't let me select and delete.
Okay, so what are you trying to delete?
The other circles that I didn't dimension yet.
Okay, I'll show you something really cool. Okay, so I'm going to just sketch something completely random just to go over this little trick. Okay, so I'm just gonna draw. Sorry, my computer's getting a little slower as we go. So I'm going to just draw like a bunch of little things because we're going to go over deleting, which is really good. Like, because this is like actually something that you wouldn't naturally learn by yourself. Okay. So if I want to delete multiple things at once, so in your case, you just want to get rid of a point, but this works for points too. So why not just like show that by putting a point in here and another point, okay? So you can select multiple things at once with SolidWorks by dragging a box. So if I left click and I drag down to the right or up to the right, I get this blue box, right?
Yeah.
If you click on like the right of what you're trying to delete and you drag to the left, you get a green box. So click and go to the right, you get a blue box. Click and go to the left, you get a green box. Okay, and both of them are different selection tools, which is kind of cool and useful. Okay, so what the green box does is anything that is intersected with that box will be fully selected. So if I want to select this circle here, but I don't want to select the entirety of the circle because like I just can't be bothered. If I use the green box by clicking right and going to the left, or like clicking and then going to the left, then I let go, it's going to highlight this whole circle and I can click delete. But if I use the blue box has to encompass the entirety of what you're trying to delete. So if I cover it like this, it'll highlight the circle and let me delete it. But if I go over like this rectangle and I only touch it, I don't like cover anything completely, nothing will be selected. Like when I click delete, after this, nothing happens. But if I do this and I click delete, it only partially intersected those lines and it'll delete it. And so when I delete stuff in general, it depends what I'm kind of trying to go for. Like if I'm trying to be very precise and only get something specific, and I can, I'll use the blue box. But most of the time, I'm just trying to delete stuff. So I'll use the green box, right? Like I don't care if I have everything in it. So those are two ways to kind of do it. Also, you could just like, if I wanted to delete just one of these points, I could just left click and then click delete on my keyboard.
The problem I'm having though is the keyboard thingamajig isn't working. Oh,
The delete? Okay. Did it work that time?
No, it just moved it somewhere.
Moved your point?
Yeah. Let me share my screen. Let me show you.
Yeah, here, let me stop my share. I mean, I believe that it moved. It makes sense.
So I think it has to do with the thing that I'm in. I think I might have to escape out of a bunch of stuff. So the circle was here and it got moved here when I clicked it.
Maybe, okay, you know, things might just be slow because you're on remote ECF and like it registered that as like a click and drag because otherwise it should not. Like if you just click it, it should be all right. So now that you've just clicked it once, try deleting it. Click the delete button.
I clicked it, right? And then I clicked the delete button, nothing happens.
Are you clicking backspace or delete?
I don't have a backspace. Oh, the place where you typically have a backspace on a regular keyboard is my delete. And I don't have any other delete. Does that make sense?
Interesting. That does make sense.
I'm on this one.
And that's why you can't get SolidWorks on Mac. Okay, if you right click, you might be able to delete. Yeah, delete all the way at the bottom. That's the only other way I can think of doing it. I'm sorry, but you can like, okay, try doing the box this time. Yeah. Okay, now right click. Go delete. You should delete both of them. Okay. That's pretty good.
Really
No. That's actually good to know. It's good for any of our Mac users who are trying to remote ECF to be able to do that. That's cool to know because like I hadn't even considered that you only have like the Mac delete key, right? Instead of like I have a designated delete key at the top right and then a backspace below it. Backspace won't do anything. Only the delete key will.
I wish we had an index of all the things we cover in our 4-hour videos and like like a way to kind of.
Oh yeah. I mean, I suppose we could go through and like make it, but that
That
would
would be
be
hard.
labor
It'd be
intensive.
very tedious. Yeah, for sure.
So
Honestly,
those are
like
the people that haven't seen the videos to do it.
I do have a lot of little things within like the slides. If you actually go through the slides, like there is a lot of little information, especially that I put in at the beginning and little notes. So like maybe just like you could use that and like index that a little bit better, or kind of like know where stuff is in there for like easy reference. Or you could just like make a list of like easy tips. I really don't know, like whatever you think is most useful. But I do think that is a brilliant idea. Like just like Control F, find how to delete stuff on Mac, right? Like that kind of thing in a file would be really cool. Okay. So I'll give you a second just to dimension your points and like get those going.
Okay.
You know, I'll give you a 5-minute break. A 5-minute break because it's not going to take you 5 minutes to do this. I'm just going to get some water and I'll be right back. Okay.
Sounds good.
So you can do that, or you can take like a 5-minute break. I'll be back at like 10 after.
Yeah. Okay. Let me sketch line.
I think I got it. I'm not sure
Right.
though.
Mirror about. Huh? What'd you bring?
I said I think I got it, but I'm not sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Same. Well, the thing for me is like I'm not able to make that mirror line. And I
Wait,
don't
why
want to
not?
do it the manual way. So like, mirror about, it's just because I never drew it before I went to mirror. So I'm just gonna
Oh,
all this. Let me draw my mirror lines.
I think mine are centered because I came up with a little orange thing, so I'm just going to say yes.
Okay, perfect. Oh, nice. Fully dimensioned. Very good. To think that I never knew anything about SolidWorks right before this.
And look at you go now. Okay, I'm just going to go grab some water.
Yes, okay, you can go do that. Thank you. Let's talk to you soon. Why is it doing this? That's not what I wanted. Oh.
I don't know if you paused the recording, but you can keep it going now.
Yeah.
I'll share my screen again.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, exciting.
Very.
Hey, we're almost there. Okay. So I assume you've got all your points dimensioned by now, and like in the right positions, right? So now we're gonna go on to the next step. So we're actually just going to back out of the sketch. Don't press the X. X will delete everything you just did. But you're going to hit this nice friendly blue arrow, which just means save everything you just did, but I'm not going to do anything with it yet, which is our plan. Okay? And so,
Pause a second. I'm so sorry. Oh,
no
okay.
worries.
So when I hit out of it, this is
Yep.
just for everybody else's information. When I clicked out of this with the nice friendly blue arrow, originally it had my guide marks, so the reference lines,
Yep.
plus the dots, a blue color, which scared me because I was like, oh, they're not dimensioned properly. But then when you click everywhere outside in the outside space, it'll go gray again. So it's okay, I suppose, right?
Yeah, no, you're fine. You're fine. As long as you've got the points. Honestly, the dimensioning of the points is not the most important part here. You're still going to be able to do what we're about to do. Okay.
Nice.
I just wanted to dimension them just so I can we can practice that, right? It doesn't hurt. Okay. So we're going to go over to features. Okay. In features, we're going to use this feature here, which we haven't touched yet, called Hole Wizard. So instead of creating a circle and cutting through, we're going to visit the wizard, and we're going to ask him to figure this out for us. Okay. So click on Hole Wizard or type it in the top to be able to find it.
Gotcha.
Okay. So the very first thing we're going to do is not going to be explore all the amazing things that are here. I'll give you a chance to kind of look through it after, and we can kind of explore it together. But I want you to go to the other tab that's up here, which is positions. Okay. So because we just created all these dots, it's going to make this part really easy for us. And so here it's going to say 3D sketch. So we talked about 3D sketches earlier and how we try to avoid them at all costs because we're just not there yet. Right? But sometimes you need them to be able to do certain things. So because we're in a feature and just the way that this has been designed, we have to click 3D sketch, and a 3D sketch is going to be started within this feature. It's don't worry about what that exactly means. All that really means is you can see we have an example of a hole that we'd be creating, right? And so the dots make things easier for us because we can just drag and drop them on there. Alternatively, we could have done all the dimensioning within here, but I thought it would be a little simpler just to make the points first and then just go drag over them. And once they snap into place, and it looks like that, left click. And so that way you don't have to do any work within this feature here. You can kind of do it all beforehand. Otherwise, you could do all of the things we did in the sketch before on the same place here. We could have placed these all down and then dimension them. But for the sake of this class, we are just going to use points and then place the stuff based off the points.
Is there a specific order you have to click the
No order whatsoever.
All right, when I click the point, it doesn't look like the way you click it, but that's because I can't do the zoom thing that you do.
Okay, well, as long as it's because of the zoom thing, you should be fine. Is there a preview at least? Is it glowing yellow?
Yeah, it glows yellow.
Okay, so you should be good.
Okay.
And honestly, if they're not in all the right places, it's not a big deal.
Yeah. I have another question. So
Yep.
the last circle you click is blue and not black. Is there a reason I can make that go away?
Nope.
Okay.
I think that it's probably something a little deeper into the sketch. I wouldn't worry about it.
All right. And do I check mark them? Done with them?
No, just click over the other tab to type
Okay.
instead of positions.
Yeah, now mine looks the same as yours.
Okay, fantastic. So what you could do now is you can start exploring this feature here. So there's a lot of stuff that's densely packed in here. So the whole concept of the Hole Wizard is it allows us to make complex holes and cuts extremely simply and related to industry standards. So we can use, maybe we want to use the metric standard, right? And so then we can go into the type of bolt or cut that we're trying to get in here. So say we know that we have a specific screw that has to be used because our company always uses this screw and they've requested they want that screw. And maybe it's this hex screw of whatever size. And you can then go through the sizes and say, okay, it's an M4 hex screw or M3.5, whatever it is. And you just click on it and it'll adjust your cuts accordingly so that it is perfectly designed to fit your hole. And so then I can go through, you can have a loose fit so that there's a little bit more spacing within your hole, or a normal fit or a close fit. You can do some custom sizing stuff as well. If you are designing something that uses a very specific screw, but not something that is very industry standard. You can go to show custom sizing, and you can dimension like this width here. You can dimension a lot of things, basically. Like if you like really look at it, you can kind of figure out what each of them mean, but like all kinds of different widths that you could potentially need. You can make it so that it cuts up to the next, depending on like the length of your screw. So like in my situation, I have it for through all, but maybe I want blind and I want it to only go down a partial distance. So you can basically do just about anything you'd want to do related to like cutting holes for screws here. Like this is the tool to be using for like any industry standard or like specialty screw that you could possibly want. And so, yep, go ahead.
Can you thread the screw holes?
Yes and no. So a lot of the threading is visual, but you can thread them. It is just much more difficult. I think, okay, we're gonna try this. Let's see, because you see, like I can actually like.
I suggest a random idea, and then Aidan's like, "Yeah, I'm gonna do it."
It's a great point because, like in general, okay, here it is. This is literally it right here. So the specific hole type that I picked is normally threaded, and so I can specifically select a cosmetic thread. A cosmetic thread just means it's going to be entirely visual for our model, which is really useful because the geometries that those threadings add to your model, if you have a very large model and you have the threading in the model for like 3,000 screws, your model will never load. So if it is only visual instead and not actually a change to the model, so it doesn't have to keep doing calculations every time you reposition stuff, then it'll make things run a lot better. Because all of this is like based on linear algebra, and as a result, every time you view something or like change an angle, it has to recalculate to make sure that everything is placed in the exact right spot. And things get very complicated when you do stuff visually. So in this situation, I will turn off the cosmetic thread, and it should show us and like actually make a thread within the model. I don't know what the specific screw type looks like, so maybe it won't, but that is specifically what you want to look for if you want the thread to actually be a part of your model. So once you've kind of played around with this, I'll give you like another minute or two just to kind of like explore and see what you make. I don't care what you pick. Honestly, like the key was just so that we could get to this point so you could do this. I'm just going to hit the check mark. I'm going to see if, okay, no, these ones didn't thread. I think it was actually just the screw type, but you definitely can. Let me see. I want to check something out. So you keep doing your thing, fooling around. I want to explore.
That's really cool. The normal fit. I don't want a custom size. And condition through all. No, I want a blind. And I want a blind. Depth of the tip. This is so nice because it gives you so many options.
Exactly. You can really do anything you want. And otherwise, like what's cool is I'll show you something. So if you watch my screen for a second, so I just picked a random screw type or like hole type and I hit the check mark. So if you go under it, like how I've shown you, like in the drop down menus, everything that like kind of was necessary in creating it gets put below it. So if you want to know how they actually make this, if you click sketch 6 here, or in my case, sketch 6, it'll show you exactly how they produce this hole. And so they drew this profile here, drew it all the way down so it's through all, and then they did a revolved cut like we had learned earlier.
Yeah.
And that's how they were able to produce this, which is kind of cool.
Really, really cool.
And so it does all that for us. So otherwise we could have done this and gone through this process and like it would have been a lot more complicated, or you just use the whole wizard and it does it all for you.
What if it says it did a 3D sketch? Oh,
totally fine. That's normal. I've got that too, because we did a 3D sketch when we selected these points and said, hey, this is where I want you to go.
yeah.
So it is like a necessary part of placing your stuff down.
Oh my God, that's so cool. Aidan. So cool.
Yeah, it is very cool. Okay, I'm glad you like that. It is definitely going to be very helpful in like future projects or whatever you're working on. Let's see if there's anything else here I kind of like wouldn't normally teach that I want to go through real quick. Okay, so like I'll show you something super quick. I'm gonna just roll back my model. You don't have to copy me. This is just because I feel like we had this question when we were creating our name tags at some point. I don't remember exactly, or like our keychains, but specifically the name portion. So what you can actually do in SolidWorks, 'cause I just saw the feature for it. Okay, I don't really care what this dimension is. I'm actually just gonna extrude it. Don't copy my habits here. This is just purely visual. Okay, so like say we create a cylinder. You can go to features and use the wrap feature, and I could click a face. What did it just do? Hold up. Oops.
Oh wow, you made a circle.
Thank you. Okay, I think I know what it's doing, but I think it's a little different than past years. Let me see. No, it isn't doing what I was hoping it would do. Okay, we're gonna try this again. Okay, so wrap. Okay, I see. It's actually, it's not worth going over, but like I know exactly how I need to approach it. It's gonna be a little more complicated, so it's actually not worth the time. But what it is like if you're kind of interested, you can use this wrap feature here to basically take something that would normally be flat. So like say we drew our names on a flat surface, like I made another plane out here and we drew our names on that, or like UT BIOME. We then would use the wrap to draw it so that it could go along this face, right? So it would wrap whatever you've done around this. And so I was hoping I could bypass creating that and just do it directly on this face, but you can't. But it's because in SolidWorks, I can't start a sketch on this face. Like no matter what, if I right click, I can edit the sketch, right? But I can't create a sketch. When it says edit the sketch, it's gonna bring me back to that original sketch, which is the profile here. But you can't draw or select and start a sketch on a cylindrical face because it just doesn't make sense. Because unless it's a 3D sketch, then you can kind of do stuff, but like in a 2D sketch, it doesn't make sense because this is not 2D, right? It is completely changing, right? So there's like workarounds that you can make, and wrap is one of them. I was hoping that I could kind of bypass it, that requirement, by like just selecting this face and doing something, but it's gonna be a little too complicated to really worry about.
Yeah.
Okay, there is one more thing. While I've got this open, it'll only take a second. So you can do something called a dome. I barely ever use this, but I just kind of remember it. And so like you can select the top face here, and these things get really confusingly odd looking. So I'm gonna go, I don't know what my that. So like if you want to round an edge or like make something that is very spacey, you can make a dome or an elliptical dome. The elliptical dome is like a more complicated geometry.
That's so cool.
Let's see.
Oh my god, that looks like a mosque dome.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it? So like you can basically create that kind of stuff using the dome feature really easily, instead of like doing like a revolve, because like maybe you don't want to, or maybe you're in a situation where you can't just do a revolve. But dome is one you do have to type into the top. I don't think there's any way to access it on the screen here.
Yeah, that makes sense. Why is that?
There's just so many features in SolidWorks that you would just be going through menus for days. So like it's basically prioritize the ones that you want, but like there are things that are kind of like hidden in here that you can find. There's also additional menus you can add to SolidWorks depending on what you're trying to do. I'll show you one more thing that is actually really useful. I don't have a good example for it, but I will show it to you nonetheless because I would like you to at least have seen this. This is more advanced as well, but it's also something you would never find because you have to find it up here. So let me think of the best way to do this. Usually I wouldn't do it like this. Okay, so I am going to draw over this. I want to see if it lets me do this first. Extruded boss/base. So I'm going to extrude through what we just created, but I'm not going to merge the result. So there's this menu here called merge result, which basically would make it so that these are all one part. Instead, they are two very confusing objects that don't make sense together. Okay, you see? So by turning off merge result, there are both objects just like stuck inside each other, okay? Oops. And so there are certain models where you're actually gonna have to use this to be able to, this tool to be able to like actually make stuff work. So it's called the combine tool. So if I go to combine, I could then select both these bodies, and then it'll give me different options for ways that I could either add them together, I could subtract from one another to create something completely different, or I could select everything that's in common between them. So I'm gonna click in common, and if you look at the preview, this is what we'd get. So if I wanna subtract, I have to select what the main body is. So I don't know exactly, let's see, show preview.
It's like set unions, like set theory.
Exactly, that is exactly it. So like you can basically take something that isn't all together. So like how we didn't merge the result, for example, I could merge the results by using the combine. And sometimes you are gonna have to use the combine, which is really cool. And so I can't think of like, okay, a good example would be you're making a mold, right? So you've got your model and you want your model to be subtracted from like a big rectangle. So like say this was our model, or like maybe like picture, okay. So like say we were trying to like mold this, okay? So like say we completely modeled this by ourselves to start, then we would make a rectangle or like a rectangular prism that would encompass this whole thing, right? And so then we could say subtract this dinosaur that is inside the rectangle from the rectangle, right? And then you could then use the combine feature to not combine stuff together, but to like create something you wouldn't have been able to create otherwise. So there is a specific section of SolidWorks that does that, like it makes molds and stuff like that, but we're not going to be touching that. So if like for some reason you have something that needs to be designed in that way, that's the way to do it.
Yeah.
I'll show you one more really cool tool that like I've known for a long time, but like these are things that you only use in special situations. And if you can't think of them or like don't know them, you're not, it's going to be a lot more difficult to bypass. So I'm just going to start, I think this is the best way to do it. I'm going to start a sketch on this face. I'm going to then, I don't know if it, okay, I might have to go back and change some stuff. I haven't used this tool in a long time. It's like not an everyday tool. So I don't know if I need construction lines or normal lines. So I'm going to start with normal lines and then we're going to go from there. So I've just created this line through here,
Wait,
right?
pause,
And so I'm going to
pause, Aidan. Sorry, I know I used
Yes.
to. Is there a way?
No, you're more than welcome to.
Is there a way to change normal lines into construction lines after?
100%.
Okay.
So if I go back into the sketch,
Yeah.
right click, edit sketch. If I click on this line,
Yeah.
I'll get a menu that opens up on the side. And under options, you'll see for construction. If I click on that and toggle that, it'll become a construction line, and you could do the reverse and like turn it off and it'll become a normal line.
Okay, that's wonderful.
Okay, fantastic.
What if it then like opened up the structure? Like how would it just not let you do it in that case? Or?
So you would still be able to change it, but when we click this blue arrow to go back to the model, once we like reach the level in which something else is using that and is reliant on that, that's where we're going to get an error. And it's going to either not let us go back and like tell us that we need to fix it and what's wrong, or it will let us go back and things will break. Okay, if that makes sense. So I could still change it in here, like say like it was like this big thing that was extruded and I removed a whole line from it. In the sketch, it would let me do it because you can do whatever you want. It just SolidWorks has expectations that you're going to fix it after. So I'm going to go back. I'm going to search up the tool split. So I don't know if I want split line or split. So I'm going to go to normal split because I think this is the one I want. So I'm going to click this line that I just created, and I'm going to cut my part using this line. And it's going to give me a couple options with what I could then use next. So like say we wanted to make a cut that was like very unique, and we didn't want to like, another way you could do it is like, we take this line, we want only this part on the bottom. We then trace everything else out here and like cut it, okay? So that only this is left. Or you use convert entities to draw this whole face again. You draw this line through it, then you use trim entities to get rid of like all the stuff that's over here, okay? But split line will be like something you want to use or need to use at certain points. So, or just split. So I drew a line. I think it can be a construction line as well. I didn't make it a construction line this time, right? And then once I selected the line, it then gives me options for what I can keep and what I can get rid of. So if the part is a lot more complicated, you're going to get a lot more options. Like this, or if the line's a lot more complicated, you're going to get a lot more options, right? So if I want this, I can then, okay, let's see. If I hit the check mark, okay, nothing changed. So what did change though, I'll show you what changed, is now this is split up into two different sections of the part. So now there is like, these are two distinct bodies. Like before, when we hit merge result and things like that, it becomes one body. Sometimes you need to split stuff into two. And so I can't tell you the exact situation where that's going to happen or come up, but I do want you to know it nonetheless. You can also then go, I believe, okay, let me just kind of like look through it a little bit more carefully. Okay, here, consume cut bodies. So this is like how you would get rid of what you select there. Okay, so like you can fully get rid of it so that you get like a very unique part. Like maybe you need this for some reason, or like you need to use this line to split something up. So like I'm just trying to give you as many tools as I can, like within this period of time that you can revisit, right? You can always go back to the video if you kind of have an idea where it is. Or you just, like if you at least know the name, you can search it up, or you can watch something on YouTube, or you can Google it. But like the best place to start is always just looking up the name at the top. So if you remember me mentioning something about a split, open up the split tool and see what it asks for, right? So like if you go over here, it's going to say trimming surfaces. That might not exactly cue you to a line, but you might kind of remember that. But a lot of the time, it'll be very helpful in terms of like asking you what you want. So like, for example, if we go back to like the swap boss/base, this is like one of the most clear things. If you hover over, it says the profile, right? And it shows you a picture of a little circle. And then it also says your path, right? And it asks for both these things. So it gives you a hint that you're going to be needing to draw some sort of face and then the path that it'll follow. And so as long as you know the names of the features and like approximately what they do, you can usually figure out what it'll actually take to make it happen.
I have a little question. So you know how you trimmed off the piece that you deleted it?
Yep.
So couldn't you not like just as an easier, faster way to do it, could you not have just made the split and then once it's there and you have your two portions,
just delete one of them?
Select one and then delete it?
Let's see. Personally, I don't think it's going to work, and I'll show you why. Because when I select stuff, like things here are like a culmination of like so many processes that when I delete stuff, you see like it wants to delete this boss extrude from the beginning. Let's see. See, right? Like everything is so dependent on everything that came before that it won't know what you're asking to delete. That's actually hilarious.
That's so funny. That's great.
That's hilarious because I hit
like an one of those like aircraft, like it's an airplane.
I think it more look like a dorsal fin of a shark or something.
Yeah, exactly.
Like like in a plane where the pilot sits and it's a little like
cockpit.
Yeah, and it's like a little like domey thing with the windows.
And this is why we didn't select the aerospace option. Okay.
Domey thing.
Yeah, maybe aerospace was not for you.
I can 100% like tell you it was not for me.
That's all right. Yeah. Brilliant nonetheless. Okay.
If you say so.
Okay, so that's all we're going to do with this part. I am just going to, because like we've only got 25 minutes left.
Yeah.
Just follow along. I'm going to go through a bunch of stuff in SolidWorks. This is going to mostly be useful to you. And I mean, people who watch it will be useful too as well. Yeah. I'm just going to show you like a bunch of things that you can do in SolidWorks that like we don't have time to really go over. And I don't think are going to be as important to you, but they're worth knowing that they're there anyway, because I don't know what you're going to run into right in the future. Okay. Yeah. So just like, I'm going to do it on this part here because I can. Okay. I am actually going to change my split to delete things again. Consume cut bodies.
I want a model of an anatomical heart, like a legit like 3D thing.
There are a lot of excellent websites for like finding stuff that you could just download, and a lot of them will be using SolidWorks specifically. Otherwise, SolidWorks, like I could take or teach a whole course on this because it is so deep in terms of opening other model types in SolidWorks and then working with them. So like you could probably look up like anatomical heart 3D model download. I'm not going to put in SolidWorks specifically, but like there are a lot of websites that are designated to specifically like crowds like open source 3D models. Sometimes some websites you have to buy stuff off of, but like a lot of the time you can download the stuff and then work with it in SolidWorks. So like if I go download 3D model, yeah, it's gonna ask me to make an account, like that kind of thing. It's one of those websites. But like one that's really good, guys, like one that's really fun, I should say, is Thingiverse. And so this, I believe, was it is started by MakerBot. So these are designed specifically to be 3D printed. So I'm gonna look up Heart. I'm sure we'll find something. And so these are like fan-made 3D models that you can like put in like 3D print. But a lot of them don't only give you the model to 3D print, but like also the model that you could import into SolidWorks. And either it'll be a SolidWorks model or something you're gonna have to try yourself.
That's so cool.
And so I have this this friend of mine. What's his last name? I can find his name for you, but he does really cool stuff with 3D printing. Dr. Mac Quantz. I think it's like spelled like this. Dr. Mac Quantz. I'm not the best speller. Yeah, and so he's a heart surgeon, and he works out of London, Ontario. And so what I met him earlier last year at the SolidWorks headquarters in Boston. And what he does is he has developed a special material that you can 3D print objects with, such as hearts. And the material is designed so that you can to replicate like human tissue. And so in terms of feel, and so the whole concept is he would go home and he'd not be able to like practice like stitching on his kitchen table or like while sitting down watching TV, because he'd have to be doing it on like a pig or something that is like anatomically accurate. So he came up with a special plastic that you could 3D print stuff with, in which he could like eat at the same table as he is stitching and practicing his fine skilled stitching by hand. And so it's like really good for students and stuff like that. And so he's been working on that, but this kind of just reminded me of that because it was specifically for like special heart surgeries and stuff like that, so that you can like, because you can learn all the theory, but you just have such little time that you actually get to practice like the finer skills like that. So I thought that was really cool. But yeah, like if you go to download stuff like here, I don't think you need a website. Like here, you don't need disable your ad blocker. Get out of here. But yeah, so like you can like download all the files that are here. I think it'll actually tell me what kind of files are here. I doubt it's going to be SolidWorks because it's so organic. They probably use something that makes this stuff a little bit easier. Yeah, here's the file. It's a .stl. So this is like I showed you the other week that you can save stuff in SolidWorks as a .stl file because that is more 3D printer friendly and it turns the stuff into triangles. And so here they've used an STL file, but we could download this and import it into SolidWorks. The only thing is like SolidWorks is going to try to, what's really cool is like when you import a file from like a different software into SolidWorks, SolidWorks tries and like walks you through basically recreating it. So SolidWorks will try to build it itself based off of like the geometries that are there so that you can have features to work on. But there are going to be portions that are just solid bodies with no idea how they got there. Right? So like there's a big portion of SolidWorks which is learning how to work with those kind of things, like imported models. And so ideally you're always going to be working with SolidWorks parts. And so like what's really useful can be like looking online, something that's very complicated and finding the SolidWorks part for it, and then going and seeing the process they did it by going through the wheel, right? Or the rollback, which is like super useful and something I highly encourage you to do because it's good for like just like understanding, you know, the thought process for modeling, but also like different features that they use and like why they use them and what they did, what they contributed. Okay. We did fillets. I can show you a chamfer super quickly. I don't think we did chamfers. So basically like fillets are extremely closely related to chamfers. So a chamfer, fillet, if you remember, we like clicked an edge and it rounded it. A chamfer, you click an edge and it'll cut it. Right, like that. So like it'll give it a specific angle and it'll cut the edge off. And so that can be super useful at different like modeling points. And so all it does is it's like drawing a triangle on this face here or like on this plane, and then it just cuts straight through. And so instead of us going through that process and drawing that triangle and doing that, it does that basically for us, right? So super, super simple and useful. Okay.
Where did you find that chamfer feature?
So if you go under features, it'll be the drop-down menu under fillets because they're so closely related. So like I'm going to open up a fillet and I'm just going to put a fillet on the opposite side just to like show you the comparison. So fillet will round while a chamfer will cut, right? And you can play around with the different angles and kind of like exactly the specification you want. I'm just going through this stuff super quickly so that you can at least see it. Okay. You can create like ribs and stuff in SolidWorks. So like a lot of the pictures will give you a good idea of what you're going to be creating. So like the rib tool here, you basically would need like one piece and another piece. I can't do it with this model, and it would like create a rib that connects the two, and like you can play with the thickness and stuff like that. We've gone over really like the very core, most important features that you will use 99% of the time, right? So like it's not like you're missing anything on that front, but there are sometimes ways to do stuff better. But also sometimes more complicated and like takes a lot more memorization, so you know what is required for each of these tools here. Okay. So one thing I did want to go over that I haven't had a chance to go over was this evaluate tab. So the evaluate tab is like really cool. So this is actually where we have our design study here that we explored earlier, which like adjusted a bunch of lengths and did like a super quick simulation. There's something called interference detection. Interference detection is not going to work here, but it is super useful because like say you've got a part or like an assembly that has a lot of moving parts. Like say there's like a crank or something, and you just want to make sure that like with all those moving parts, there is not a single point in which things overlap, because if they overlap, when you 3D print it or you manufacture it, it's not going to work. But you're not going to notice that unless you run interference detection. So basically you start interference detection, you can like rotate and position your stuff around, and then it'll like tell you when you've hit something, or if you've hit something, okay? And you can play around with that more kind of like another time if you come across like a need to check, does this actually like overlap anywhere? Because you're not going to be able to zoom in and inspect everything perfectly at all angles. So that's kind of the way to do it. There's a measure tool. So this doesn't set measurements, it takes measurements. So unlike Smart Dimension, when I click both these sides, it's just going to tell me a dimension and I can't change that. So it's really good like if you just need a quick dimension, or like say we're modeling a different part and we need this dimension to like accommodate this part here. Like say this sits inside it some way or stands up inside it. Like maybe this is like an award or something and you need it to stand up inside a case. Maybe you need this height. So things like that. And it can give you a lot of different dimensions from like a bunch of different faces. But you got to be careful and make sure that it's giving you the dimension that you want it to give you. Because sometimes it'll like give you something a little bit wonky. Like if I click here and here, it's being pretty friendly today, but a lot of the time you will get like complicated things. Okay, the reason it's being friendly is because there's too many things selected. Okay, so like it gives you the 1.4 inches, but a lot of the time it'll actually draw a triangle. So it'll go from here to here, which is like the dimension we want, but it'll also go from here to where I clicked on the other one, and it'll tell you that distance in case you want it. So like just be very aware of stuff like that. Okay. Okay, so I'm gonna set a material real quick. We're just gonna go here. I can fast select a material. I'm just gonna say it's 1060 alloy, and that's just because we're going to something called mass properties, which I use a lot. And so mass properties, you click on this once. We would have explored this within the water bottle, and this is why like I briefly mentioned that it's a good way that I could make fun of you, because we'll click on it and then you'll realize that your water bottle is like the size of like the Taj Mahal or something like that, right? Like that kind of thing. And so like in this situation, we've got a mass, like an accurate mass that is given to us of 5.61 pounds. It gives us a density base, and this is all based off the material we selected. That's why I wanted to put a material. There is surface area, center of mass, like that kind of stuff. So like all kinds of super useful things. Okay. Okay. Can you still hear me?
Yeah, I can. I'm sorry.
Okay. No. Just because my camera froze entirely, so I wasn't sure. I'm just making sure. Okay. Fantastic. Okay. So yeah, that's like a lot of the things that you could possibly be looking for. You can just like find here. But I'll show you something else that's related that's super cool, and that's called sensors. So say you're doing a model and you know that you have a constraint within your model. And so let's say that constraint is like the mass of your model. So like say my mass could not be greater than 100, I don't know what this is using, pounds. it doesn't want me to put LB. So just I'm going to put 100. It knows that it's pounds because we're in inch/pound/second. And so currently this is our weight, 5.6. And so I'm going to show you what happens. So I'm going to go on this face. So I just created a sensor. You can see the sensor in this drop-down menu here. And so it's just going to make sure and warn me if I ever bypass that, like if I break that rule I just set. So I'm going to just go onto it. Okay. I'm going to draw a rectangle, and we're just going to intentionally bypass the mass. Okay. There's no way. No, not yet. That's only 40. That's actually hilarious. Okay, we got to get to 100. We're gonna go sketch here.
I was talking. I was saying, or you could reduce your mass constraint to. Like,
I could also reduce the mass constraint, but would that really be that fun? There's no way. No. There we go. Okay, I had to update it. So like the sensor won't automatically update. So this is like something that's kind of like older in SolidWorks that you had to do a lot. That's rebuilding. So this traffic light symbol here is your rebuild. So all that does is it'll basically like reload everything you're doing. It's like refreshing a web page almost. So you could do that with Control B, or you click on the traffic light. So it'll give you that warning again, in which it'll like show me the sensor. So in the past, you used to have to refresh a lot, but SolidWorks like now automatically does it very frequently, like after each time you do something. So I don't click this nearly as much as I used to. But I want you to at least know that it's there. And so it's good because like if you have an error, it'll tell you what that error is, right? So here it's giving me a warning. It says the following sensors have triggered alerts. The mass sensor, because I am now at like 900 pounds, which is greater than 100, right? So super useful because you're not going to be thinking about these things if you're making a big model, but maybe it is something very important and inherent to what you're designing. And so then it'll like encourage you to kind of revisit. So I'm just going to roll back what I just did. Okay. There are like different things that you can sense within the sensor. So I'm going to update it. It's going to be happy again. I can edit the sensor, right? So you're right, we could have just changed that. You can also make sure that certain dimensions don't change, that it doesn't go above a certain cost of material. And you can do simulation data again, and it can run a quick simulation each time. It's just going to slow down your stuff like significantly. So like I wouldn't necessarily recommend that unless you're using a higher level computer or doing like a higher level job. Okay. Let's go back to the evaluate tab. Okay, so now is like some more funner things. So like you can put on zebra stripes on your model. And so like that sounds pretty useless, but it's actually pretty good because like when you're working with stuff like splines, what these do is they basically help you follow your geometry. So like if your curvature is consistent and perfect, the zebra lines will be connected consistently and perfectly. And so as you can see, like these zebra lines are different from these zebra lines because the line isn't perfect. Also where this split is, because this curvature isn't consistent, right? Like it changes curvature over here, and that's why you can kind of see this line. The zebra stripes are not the same from here to here, right? So zebra stripes just kind of like help you analyze your curvature, but there's also a specific curvature tool. I'm gonna turn off zebra stripes, in which the curvature, let's see, can I get an actual menu to pop up? I can't. Okay, but like it just helps you analyze your curvatures. Like this curvature is like different than this. I don't know. Like this, I guess, is completely flat here and completely straight, right? Because I started with a straight line, so that's the same curvature as everything else. And then these two have different radiuses. So just like depending on your situation, a very simple and useful tool that doesn't change anything. Like because I just toggle it back off, just like how like the section cut before, you toggle it on, right, and then you just toggle it right off.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see if there's anything else that's like really worth going over up here. Not particularly. I can go over this menu right here. So I haven't really talked about this because like the default settings are quite good compared to what they used to be, or like on certain computers what I've had to deal with. So like you can go into view settings, and so you can change the way that your model naturally looks. So you can turn off perspective view. And so I don't know if we're going to be able to really see much of a difference here because we aren't working with a big model. But the whole concept is like, as you look at it, things will get smaller in the distance and bigger up close. But as a result, it can be kind of confusing to look at your model, and like certain things won't look straight as a result, even though they are straight. So I try to keep that off. There's cartoon. It's just like a different way of looking at it. Like maybe you need that kind of light to like help you look at it. I really don't know. I personally have never used cartoon. Ambient occlusion is just a different view way of looking at it. So I'm going to turn off cartoon. I think that's just like to kind of make it look better. Like I think the light looks a little bit more shiny, right? Like we still get a bit of a reflection, but you could also turn off shadows in shaded mode, right? So like now it'll run a little bit better because before there was like a slight shadow that comes out below it, right? So those are mostly graphical things. So here's, I believe, our scenes. So this is actually quite useful. So at times I've wanted to create a .png image in which there is no background. And so you can do that within your photo settings. Like sometimes I just want a completely white background because maybe you're bringing it into Photoshop or something like that. I don't know. But there's like some situations, and like by default, which is really nice. I don't believe I set this. This is coming in default here. I used to have to manually do this. Is you can go down here. And so naturally the background is like this 3-point faded, right? So like it goes white, gray, white. But you could change it to be plain white. And so like maybe you're taking a screenshot and that'll be really helpful to have it plain white instead of like this weird colored background that kind of gets in the way. I personally like this when modeling just because I'm used to it because it's always been that way. Okay. I do know some more shortcuts, but I don't think you really need them for like hiding and showing. Yeah, okay. We won't worry about this one here. This is just like hide and show axes, origins, stuff like that. But we're not really there. Okay, this is like another thing that you can use for like looking at the different views. Yeah, I realized I didn't go through this earlier. I didn't actually mean to click that one yet. We'll go back to that in a second. So you're just gonna have to keep paying attention and keep excited. So we're gonna go to display style. So this one is actually kind of useful. So sometimes you want your edges just to be shaded. I don't like this because like I find it's like much harder to pick out an edge and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But it's a different view mode. But some of these are actually genuinely useful. It's like here you can have it so that there's lines in which you're just not getting distracted by anything else.
Yeah.
There's also like lines that you can see through. You see like we can kind of see these lines that go through it.
I love that. Yeah, that's so good.
Right? So that's super useful. And then this one, I believe, yeah, just makes those lines more hard, but it can make it a little bit difficult to visualize your model. So you have to really know what you're working with. But at times you're going to want to be picking this edge on the side, like this one down here and this one up here. And it just like simplifies things if you're doing that a lot. So just good to know. Okay, so back to shaded with edges. Yep.
I had a question, but I forgot it.
That's totally fine. As soon as you remember it, let me know. Okay, so view orientation here. This is the thing you're looking at.
Yeah.
So here we can pick any of these faces and it'll show us that specific view. So it's like as if we're bringing the screen here to this angle. It's like here, boom, it shows us that angle.
Oh,
So it's like,
yeah.
it's good for you, especially without a scroll wheel, right?
Yeah, that's what I was actually thinking about because I'm like, I see him go so many places, but I can't do that. And this is amazing.
Good. I'm glad that helps. But that is like one accurate way to do it. Like for me, a lot of the time I'm hitting the control buttons when realistically I'm just like guessing when I'm going through them and hoping that I hit the view that I want. But this is like the smarter way to do it, right? Like you can get exactly the view you want. Like I want to look at it from this angle, right? And it'll bring you perfectly to that angle, which is really nice.
Love it.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
I got my question.
Yep.
As we were going through this.
Beautiful.
There's like a little label that shows up at the bottom with an asterisk, and this is just, I'm making this note so that the people watching this video can know what it's about. I was really confused why there was like a little asterisk in like a title at the bottom below my like below my little origin key legend thing, and it just shows you the view you're in. So like you don't have it, Aidan. Like you don't
Interesting.
have things, but I have like little. You see how in the corner of your screen in the bottom left, there's
Around here?
yeah, just below it, it says on mine, there's like an asterisk that says right because I'm in the right view, or it'll say isometric.
Oh, let's see.
Or like.
Right here. There.
Oh, there you go. Okay.
Oh, okay, that's cool. Yeah, I hadn't actually noted that, but that is very useful to know exactly what you're looking at.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's going to all be relative to the planes you assign stuff to, and that's also why it's important to like have stuff on the front plane or the right plane or the center plane, or sorry, the top plane. There's no center plane. You can make a center plane. Okay. Let's see. Is there anything else I really want to go over? So I'd say that's all the important things from up here, all the important things from this menu here, at least like for a long time for where you're going to be at. So I kind of went over how to do add-ins last time, but like you basically right-click this menu. Where is it? And then you go to tabs. So like if you right-click any of these down here and you go to tabs, you can like toggle on like which things you want open and which things you don't. There's a few that I don't need. And so like, let's see what customize brings us to. Okay, yeah. So yeah, you can like custom, I guess this isn't that useful. Like at least not right now. Like this is the shortcut bars, like we're not there. Okay, but there is like more customization you can do, like customizing stuff that like quickly pops up and all kinds of stuff. Like you can basically make SolidWorks extremely more efficient for you instead of kind of what you just normally work with. But you'll get there eventually. So in the last 3 minutes, I'm just going to show you something really quick. So if you remember, every time we make a part, it asks if you want to make a part, assembly, or a drawing. You could take a whole class on assemblies. You can take multiple classes on any subject at SolidWorks, right? Like, and they will be just as long as today's class, or all of our classes, or longer. So like, we're gonna go to look at drawings real quick. I'm just gonna make a drawing out of this. So this isn't, I wouldn't say is as useful to you two, or like the club. It might be. Like, I'd say this is like a mechanical engineering kind of thing. It's kind of boring, but like, it's good to know that you can do it. And so basically, this is like, you are trying to get your model manufactured. So you can then start a drawing with what you have just what you've just created, so you can explain all the dimensions that you have, so that they can then manufacture it. So we don't have enough time to really go through it. I more wanted to show it to you, but like you basically start by like making a view, like a set of views. It's like you click like standard 3 view and it'll give you like your front, your right, and your top view. And then like we have some familiar tools to us like Smart Dimension, and Smart Dimension will then be like the same tool that we use to like basically set what our dimensions are. So it'll then say what the dimension is, and you basically just dimension everything one by one. So like, I didn't think that this would be as important to you, so I didn't like want to spend as much time on this. But like normally when I teach classes, I'll just kind of like whip through this and like at least show them like all the tools, but I don't think that that's as important for us today. If this is something that you guys like at some point feel you need, I'd be happy to like just like, even if it's just an hour, just teach you how to do it, because it is very easy, but there was a lot of tools. It's very dense. Like you can actually, I've taken a multiple day course on only sketching, so like everything goes that deep within SolidWorks. But yeah, like the basics is like you basically create views that are like 2D. You set dimensions, and then you can send it off to get manufactured as long as you've given all the dimensions. And like when I do this kind of stuff, I'll usually like import a picture too of like the model so that they can kind of see what the picture looks like, the model looks like in 3D, and I'll put it in the top right corner. But yeah, that's kind of the key.
Have you ever sent a lot of materials to manufacture like that?
I've made a lot of drawings, but mostly for presentation purposes. I've never actually gotten them manufactured per se, using those drawings. I've sent them to be manufactured, like to see what it would cost and like get a quote, but I've never actually manufactured stuff that I've designed necessarily. But they are necessary. Like if you go, they're not going to ask you for your SolidWorks model. They're going to ask you for your drawings, because this is what they work in all the time. And so it's like just like our way of converting our language in 3D to theirs in 2D so that they can manufacture it.
That's fantastic. No, it's really good for us to know even now, because like we'll get to this point later when we're trying to manufacture, and then if COVID is so bad that we won't be able to make our materials ourselves, then this is effective because we can find a company to make them for us.
Definitely that is the way to go. And like if you hit that stage and you need some help with like making some drawings, to make a basic drawing is not hard at all, and I can like definitely help you out like very quickly. Okay.
Yes. Aidan, thank you so much.
No problem.
It was a big help, and I think the recordings as well will be very useful.
Yeah, I really like hope a lot of people can actually like follow them and like watch them, and like definitely send them the slides too, because I don't intend them to only be for like the people who came, right? Because even as a resource themselves, like they're very useful even for the people who did come. So like if you want to go back and like review stuff,
That's
like
about-
especially the more meticulous stuff, the slides are all yours.
Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you.
Okay, no problem. I do have to run though, but I did very much enjoy teaching this, and I appreciate you allowing me to teach this.
Appreciate you coming. It was,
And all of your patience with it.
yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
thank you for being excellent students that were also patient with me.
If you
Okay.
get any specific feedback on your teaching, let us know if you have any forms that you'd like our team to fill out. And
Okay. Okay, that sounds good. I appreciate it. Okay. Okay. Have a fantastic, few weeks, and I'll definitely be seeing you soon. Okay.
thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Okay. Stay safe. Take care.
You too.
Bye.